Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome to another episode of Sree's daily global COVID-19 show. My name is Sreenivasan, and it's my honor to host this daily conversation that we've had for more than 100 days during the 100 days of lockdown in New York. We're live right now on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube, and on LinkedIn. Please hit share right now so folks can join us from around the world. Tag your friends right now, please. We'd love to have them join us. We want to do a big shout out to our partnership with Scroll.in. This is one of India's leading independent news, culture, and analysis websites, and they've been simulcasting us for several dozen episodes now, and their audience has therefore become our audience, and our reach has increased dramatically. Please keep hitting share right now. Tag a friend. This is our 100th episode. It's Juneteenth. We'll be marking that. As we say on the screen, join us as we learn and mourn and ask questions and celebrate and cry and laugh and so much more. We have at least 4 awesome guests, but we have actually many, many more. These are just some of our guests. We'll be joined by Professor Noliwe Rooks, the W.E.B. Du Bois Professor of Literature at Cornell. Brandy Hardin, lawyer and board member at Justice Aid. We'll be joined a little later by Reverend Kenny Irby, who's at Irby Man. He's a pastor and teacher and a friend for many years. Professor Noliwe Rooks, by the way, is on Twitter at @nrookie, and you'll see the tweet that lit up the internet today from her. We'll also be joined by Jonathan Borstein, who has watched all 99 episodes, and because I know he's watching right now, he's watched 100 episodes of this show. We'll have an extended show today. We're going to 11 p.m. Eastern, and that means we have 2 hours of content for you. And we've got friends from all over the world who've sent in video greetings, and you'll be able to do the same. So please stand by. We will start in just a minute. Hi, everybody. I'm Sree, and just very grateful to all of you for being here, for being with me on this journey, incredible journey of 100 days. I had no idea when we started we would go even 10 days, let alone 100 days. And this is all possible because of all of you. So many of you have sent in wonderful notes that this is a show that is uplifting. This is a show that's a lifeline. Well, it's uplifting and a lifeline for me. And I'm so grateful that all of you have been with us. We can do this only because of our great viewers and also our sponsors. So we'll go right away and thank our sponsors, where we are sponsored by Art & Co. Get involved with the world's largest online art auction. Fundraising for COVID-19 victims. Please go to artandco.net, artandco.net, and help artists and help victims of COVID-19. This is a big effort that ends next Saturday, not this week, so you have a week to participate. We also want to do a shout out to Rutgers Global Entrepreneurship Experience. This is a virtual teen camp where they can learn, your teens can learn from top entrepreneurs and startup experts from Cognizant, Angie's List, Google, Facebook, among many others. Go to globalentrepreneurshipexperience.org, 20% off code SREE. Please participate. Please tag someone who has a teenager in their life. Meanwhile, don't forget to share this as well. There's so many great speakers and me, so tell your teenager to step away when I'm teaching, but everyone else was there who is fantastic. We also want to tell everybody about this unique opportunity. Muckrack Academy has sponsored us and made it possible for me to give you a free certification course in social media. It's live now. It says June 17th, but it's already live at mrac.co/social. mrac.co/social. People have already participated and finished the course. It's a couple of hours and you learn a lot. mrac.co/social. Here's Lauren Mack's certificate. She's already had it downloaded and she put it on the internet. So everyone, please go to mrac.co/social. It's open to everyone of any age, any background, any interests, and any level of experience. The fundamentals of social media, mrac.co/social. If you didn't catch any of our promos, please let me know, email me, and we'll send you information. One last thing. It's Father's Day this weekend, and we have an epic Father's Day show. We start in the morning with Tom Jolly of the New York Times will be here, the print editor, to read the New York Times with me at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time. And at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, my 17-year-old twins have agreed to be on my show to give us their perspective. And they only agreed to do it because it's Father's Day. Otherwise, they would never come on my show. And we are doing a Father's Day sponsorship opportunity. Thank a father figure in your life. Could be a father, grandfather, uncle, male role model, someone in your family or life. Send in a message and a picture, and we'll read it on the air on both shows. You're seeing here a photo of me with my dad when a few years ago, and on the right, Neil Parekh, executive producer of the New York Times Read Along, with his father. So please do let us know. Go to digimentors.link/Father's Day and Sree at Sree.net if you can't find that. digimentors.link/Father's Day. If you can't afford the advertised price, just let us know. Pay what you wish. We definitely want to feature a male role model in your life. We did this for Mother's Day and had 25 people participate. We gave half the proceeds to charity, to Nick Kristoff's initiative around climate change, and we'll be doing a great charity again this year. So we are ready to mark this 100th episode. I first want to bring on our wonderful producers who made this possible for us by being there with us for 99 days. And here they are on day 100. Please say hello to Rose Horowitz. Hi, Rose.
Hi. Great to be here.
And here's Vandana Menon.
Hi.
How are you?
Hi.
Great to have you both here, and want to say to both of you, thank you for coming on this incredible ride with me and this whole global audience. And part of the reason we can do what we do is because we have incredible support. And my support is actually right here. I want you all to say hello to my wife, Rupa.
Hello. Hi, congratulations.
Hi, Rupa.
Hi, Rupa.
We've made it through 100 days, guys.
I know.
Very early, you were a guest on a show with Rose, organized a wonderful episode about networking and women, and you were both on it. And you should all know, for those who watched early episodes and then are wondering where I am, this is not our apartment. This lady and my twins decided that I'm making too much noise in the apartment, too many Zoom calls, too many live shows, not just these, but my WBAI radio show and our other programs for our clients. And so she basically kicked me out. She and the kids talked to our friend Rajni, who lives in the building, who's moved to Long Island, and said, let him use the apartment, or we'll kill him, and then we'll need to use it for the funeral. So instead, I am down here.
I did it for everyone's well-being.
But a big shout out to everyone who's watching, who's had family letting them do something that they wanted to pursue in the middle of all that was going on. I'm so grateful to Rupa and to my kids and to everyone who's let our guests come on. You know, we had 200 guests in 99 shows, and that means that many people the good chance were affected by this as well. So we're very grateful. And thank you so much for letting us do what we do.
Thank you for doing this. Thank you, guys.
All right. How are you all feeling on day 100?
I can't believe it's been 100 days. I remember when we were doing this at 50 days and then at 75 days. And I can't believe we're at 100.
Yeah. Rose, how are you feeling?
I can't believe it's been 200 guests. It just doesn't seem possible.
Let's reveal some of these numbers. We've had 201 guests, including today's guests. 124 of them have been women from 45 cities and 12 countries. And part of this is that we really wanted to make sure we featured women. We had diverse speakers every single time, and we made that possible because of the both of you working so hard on getting us speakers. What do you think of this card as well, Rose?
Well, it's just incredible that it's 1 million, and I guess if you average it out, it's 2 guests a show, which is incredible. And we did work really hard to make sure that we always had women, and also that we always had a diverse range of speakers from different backgrounds in terms of color, age, everything that we could think of that was inclusive.
Yeah, Vandana, your thoughts?
Yeah, it's been amazing to meet so many different kinds of people who are doing such different things. And I think that's been one of my biggest takeaways, just learning, meeting and learning from so many incredible people that we've had the opportunity to have on this show.
Yeah, and we couldn't have done it without you. I want to show everybody now something else that we're very proud of is that today we're going to encourage people from around the world to watch with us and to also participate. If you'd like to send in a video greeting, as many people have, let me show you how this works. You go onto your computer and go to flipgrid.com/Sree show, flipgrid.com/Sree show. Let me show it to you again. That's that word, flipgrid.com/Sree show. And I'm just showing you the QR code. So if you know how to use your QR code reader, you can get here and you can send us a message. And here are messages from people all over the country. And our very first video was from Mark Lee. So we're going to just play a little bit of it here now, and we'll watch all of them later. But I'm just going to play it here.
I am a big fan of Sree and the work that you've been doing here in digital media. It definitely provided some great conversation on both his daily COVID calls as well as on his Sunday read-along of the New York Times. I came across Sree some time back and have been a fan of his for a number of years and definitely think that he is doing some great work revolving around Black Lives Matter, revolving around the economic crisis that we're in, revolving around a number of things that are of importance to us here in the United States, but also around the world. So he is definitely a true voice of the media here in this area.
Thank you so much. And that was our friend Mark Lee who joined us. And you can send in your video. You don't have to do it tonight, but we will be playing all of them and watching all of them and just being so grateful to all of you for sending in videos. And some of these folks have already sent in videos. Others are sending us comments from around the world. So again, you go to flipgrid.com/Sree show and you can send in the information, send in the video. But now let's get started. I'm very excited to bring on our guests. So Vandana and Rose are going to be backstage tweeting, sharing, etc., and they're going to join us again in a little while. We have these two great professors who are joining us in a minute, and they'll be with us, our first two guests, and then later on we also have a couple of other guests joining us. Rose, tell us who you've booked for the 10 o'clock hour.
We have Amber, who is with Gender Avenger. And she prepared, they put up a post, the Gender Avenger of the Week, which they usually do on Fridays. And there it is, where I guess they selected all these women, writers, and voices for everybody to celebrate on Juneteenth. And we're going to have Amber, who was on our show a few weeks ago with her three daughters.
Mom of all capes.
Yes.
Mom of all capes. She'll be here in the 10 o'clock hour. At about 9:30, 9:40, we'll be joined by Reverend Kenny Irby. So let's get started. We'll say goodbye to you for now. You'll be tweeting, sharing. Please follow them at Rose Horowitz and at Vandana_Menon. Thank you so much. Okay, let me bring in our guests. First, I'm going to bring on Professor Noliwe Rooks, who is the W.E.B. Du Bois Professor of English at Cornell University. I'm going to bring her on. And just so grateful. We first met when she was a guest on my radio show on WBAI 99.5 FM, Saturdays noon to 2. I learned so much from her. I asked her if she would be kind enough to come back and spend some time with us today on Juneteenth. We really wanted her here. And here she is. Please say hello, everyone, to Professor Rooks. Hello.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me. And congratulations. Your century show. It's an honor to be here to celebrate it with you.
Thank you so much. We've only known each other for a couple of weeks, but I've been so inspired by the messages that you have shared, not just on my show, but just also on Twitter. And I want everyone to follow her on Twitter. She is at nrookie, NROOKIE on Twitter, and you can follow her. And I'm going to show everybody this tweet that she shared just today, and it blew up the internet. She said maybe if she wouldn't mind reading it to us, that would be an honor.
Juneteenth is not the day all Black people in the world were emancipated, the day all people in the United States were emancipated, A few states waited for the 13th Amendment to be ratified. The day Black people became citizens, or the end of our freedom story.
And look at that, 26,000 tweets and retweets and likes. And today was a busy day, so to break through that would have been tough. But it says something about what you were sharing, the wisdom and the insights. And there's just a few characters. And someone of your stature using Twitter like that, I think, is eye-opening for a lot of folks. And we are very grateful to you. Before we bring on our other guest, Brandy Hardin, who's a lawyer and a board member at Justice Aid, I wanted to ask you the question I ask everybody. How are you? And how's your family through all the COVID and the 100 days of lockdown?
You know, I am blessed. My entire family, we have a small family, but everybody in it is healthy. Everybody in it is got a place to live, enough to eat, and is doing well. And that's really, in these days, it's no small thing.
We're grateful for every little bit. Thank you so much. Let me now bring on our guest, Brandy Hardin. Thank you so much for being here, Brandy. Hello.
Hi everyone. How are you?
Hi.
Thank you so much for having me.
No, we're delighted and honored to have you. Same question. How are you? How's your family?
I am good. In my world, we call this house arrest. I will also take from Professor Rooks and say that I'm too blessed to be stressed. So it's just me and my mom that are living in DC, and both of us are healthy and safe and happy.
Yeah.
Great to hear. Great to hear. You also shared something today. You wrote a message to us. I don't know if you have your phone handy and can pull that up. If you wouldn't mind doing that, we'd love to hear that whenever you're ready.
Sure.
Yeah. And I'll just say that she's with Justice. She's a board member at Justice Aid, but she's also a lawyer. And she studied at Howard University, and she taught at Harvard, and is someone who has made it her mission to help all kinds of folks who need help at this time with the legal system. And she's been just great to get to know. So go ahead, Brandy, whenever you're ready.
Okay, yes, thanks so much. We will use today, June 19th, 2020, Juneteenth, to remind us that 155 years later, slavery still exists. We will use today to remind us that all persons in the United States still are not free, according to the 13th Amendment. We will use today to remind us that even after the so-called abolition of slavery, June 19, 1865, Juneteenth, the American Constitution held on to one exception for slavery. That exception, punishment for conviction of crime. Just as the movie 13th explained, sanctioning slavery in the prison context is rooted in the Black codes. Constitutionally sanctioned slavery has a direct correlation to mass incarceration, the prison industrial complex, and in turn, to corrupt policing. Neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as punishment for crime, whereof the person shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States. December 6, 1865. Juneteenth, 2020. 155 years later, let us not forget.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. That was beautiful. Tell us there's a lifetime of words of experience in those words. Can you tell us a little bit about your work and how that's connected to what you just shared with us?
Absolutely. And I'm going to start with, I'm a Texan. So Juneteenth is really near and dear to me. It's something that I grew up celebrating. It's something that I always, as a youngster, thought was a big holiday. And it was not until I got sort of older, maybe a little wiser, that I found out what was really happening. What I would say is that I was a public defender for almost 9 years. I then went into private practice, where I still continue to represent indigent people in the criminal defense world that can't afford a lawyer. And for me, the 13th Amendment has special significance because far too often, Black and brown men are the people who are in prison. And if you look to the movie 13th, in fact, what's happening is that those bodies, those humans, those lives are still being used as slaves. So it motivates me every day. For the longest time while I was at the Public Defender Service, I had that up on my door long before the movie 13th came out. So you can imagine my delight once the movie came out, that the world was finally getting to know that slavery is still written in our Constitution.
I don't think most people understand that, and that's something that we want to talk about today as well. Professor Rooks, your thoughts on what she said, and also how are you thinking about Juneteenth today? You told us what it is not. Maybe you'll tell us what it is.
Yeah, it is really quite something, to have grown up in African American communities where Juneteenth was a holiday. We all celebrated it. It was something that we really took to heart. It was part, you said a little tongue in cheek, right? I mean that, the people in Texas didn't even know they were free for a very long time. But also, it was a kind of real acknowledgement of the United States government and owners and whiteness and the situation that enslaved folks found themselves in, that they could have been free for either 2 years. So if you start with the Emancipation Proclamation, when it was read, freeing the enslaved folks in Confederate states, 2 years passed between then and when the folks there found out that they had in fact been freed. But even after that, it was 2 months after the Civil War had ended that they found out. And some of the reasons that you hear for why that they didn't know, people rarely want to say because their owners simply wanted them to stay slaves because they were making a lot of money for them. They liked the ways that the world was organized. But you'll hear things like, there was a very slow horse and a rider that was sent to tell them that they were free, and the rider got lost and the horse died. So literally you will hear people speculate about how could it be that this either 2 years or 2 months have passed and no one has told them. And what I always like to point out is, there were newspapers. There were newspapers. There were railroads. Like, people try to act like 1865 is a period of time akin to the Stone Age or Tudor England or something, right? Where you only have horses to tell you stuff. There's wire services. Western Union, actually, you can send a telegram. There's absolutely no reason that the ruling class, that wealthy people, that the captains of industry, who the owners of enslaved people were, would not have known. They simply wanted to keep Black people enslaved. And I think that there's a story there about the law, the limits of the law, the limits of freedom, the limits of right, ethics, and morality, but also the links that we will go to as a country to not name and claim, which is the truth of certain situations. The links that we will go to make it seem like Black oppression is just an accident, just a few bad apples, just something that went awry, as opposed to a system that is operating the way that it's designed to operate.
Thank you for sharing that with us. I'm struck by your phrasing of that. One of our guests on an earlier show was Adam Server, who wrote, I think, one of the most important articles of the first 3 years of the Trump administration. Whenever people complain that things are so cruel, why are they so cruel at the border? Why are they so cruel with the transgender folks or the DACA situation? And by the way, great news on DACA for now.
Yeah.
And whenever they say that, his article said the headline was very simple. The cruelty is the point. It isn't like it's an aberration that things are cruel. That was the point of many aspects of this administration that people don't understand. And I want to let everybody know what we're doing here, because we have a lot of new folks who've never seen the show and might be a little confused about where we are and what we're doing. Welcome. My name is Sreenivasan, and these are two of my awesome guests tonight. We have several folks this is our 100th episode of our daily program talking about all aspects of COVID-19. And we are here with Professor Noliwe Rooks, who's at NRookie on Twitter. Please follow her. We're also with Brandy Hardin, lawyer and board member of Justice Aid. Professor Rooks is the W.E. Du Bois Professor at Cornell. And I see backstage waiting to join us in a couple of minutes is Reverend Kenny Irby. He's at Irby Man. Do follow him. He's a pastor and teacher and friend. And we will also be joined later by Jonathan Borstein, who's a writer who's watched all 99 episodes of this show. And I want to ask Brandy, tell us about the work of Justice Aid and why it exists and how it's tied to the work that needs to happen going forward.
Absolutely. So Justice Aid is a group of civil rights advocates, quite honestly, that use music and arts to raise money to support other civil rights organizations. This year, we've had a lot of events, and our main issue this year is voter suppression and election protection. As you know, as people have seen, there have been a lot of problems already with voting, and we want to make sure we get out the vote, make sure that people's voices are heard, and make sure that things that people fought so hard for, civil rights that people fought, shed blood for, and died for, that their voices are heard through voting. And so Justice Aid, we have concerts, we have events where we raise money, we donate to different organizations. And again, this year, our issue is election protection. So I hope everyone will join us for our upcoming events. Please also follow us on Twitter. It's an awesome organization, and we do lots to help civil rights organizations. I'm proud to be a board member of Justice Aid.
I want to just show everybody that thanks to Justice Aid, we had the founder, Steve Milliken, and we did an amazing conversation just last week with Reverend Kevin Van Hook, who's Minister Justice at the Riverside Church, and Marcia Johnson Blanco, who's co-director for Voting Rights Project at the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights. All of these shows, all 100 shows, you can find on my archive in YouTube. So youtube.com/Sreenet. Everybody, please find the archive, find these episodes, tag them, share them with your friends. They're all available thanks to our amazing guests like these folks. We're going to do for everybody now our global tour, which we always do. I want our guests to see people watching from around the world. Our first viewer is always Jonathan Borstein, and he'll be here later. He'll be here himself on camera for the first time. Laura Silverman is watching from Philadelphia, and folks, feel free to give shout outs for any of your favorite cities as you see them. Radian is watching from Long Island. Doug Levy is watching from California. Michelle Raphael is watching from California too, Southern California, and she says happy Juneteenth. Marilyn is watching from Staten Island. Marilyn, we have to get you on the show.
Marilyn, yeah.
Neil Parek, who's executive producer of our New York Times read along. This Sunday, Tom Jolly, print editor of the New York Times, will be here to read print newspapers with us and talk about the future of those with us. Courtney is here. 100 amazing shows. She says she's watching from Tucson. By the way, to both our guests, want to say, isn't it amazing that those states that have been the ones that are been against using masks and against the shutdown are now where the spikes are. And I take no pleasure in seeing those spikes. It is terrible to see what's happening in Florida, Arizona, and then Oklahoma. On the day they just had the highest single total
ever
of coronavirus cases. The president is going in, insisting against everybody's directions and pleading, saying, we're going to have that 10, 20,000 people crowded into a closed space. And by the way, pointing to protesters who are outdoors, who are fighting systemic oppression and who are wanting to be out there on their own and raise a voice, and comparing that to what he's doing. Professor Rooks, your thoughts on just that comparison?
I mean, it's hard to talk about the president. I mean, what we're seeing here in terms of the race-based truth of the differences that are in this country, and the race-based truth, the antipathy that the White House seems to have, that members of the White House, certainly from where I'm sitting, seem to have to ideas of citizenship, right? Not it began with the citizenship for people who had immigrated to the United States, but increasingly we're just seeing antipathy toward citizens. So American citizens with a right to protest, American citizens who believe that that their government should protect them, that they have certain claims that they should be able to make, are regularly shut down. And in this instance, what you're seeing is, if Trump supporters want to go maskless in the convention center, that's fine. The problem is they have to leave the convention center. And they leave this convention center with their infections, with their germs, with their COVID, and infect others. And the lack of desire on behalf of the president, the White House, people around him, to make sure that you're keeping American citizens safe. It's flabbergasting that we can't expect better from him. And it is just a truth of why he would go to Tulsa, Oklahoma. We can talk about that later, but what would lead him initially for Juneteenth, but eventually the day after to go to Tulsa, Oklahoma on a day after we should be talking about freedom and what that means, and engage in this sort of reckless behavior, this disrespectful behavior. There are no words. There are no words.
I think there are words. They're just words that we may not be able to share on a family show.
Yeah.
For some of this. And just we can point out, and Brandy can help me with this. We had our guest, Tramari Wills, on the show, who wrote a book about the first 6 African American slaves to escape and become millionaires. And one of them was from Tulsa, Oklahoma, where there was a place known as Black Wall Street, where there were so many rich or well-to-do African Americans that a white mob one day went in and attacked and killed hundreds of African Americans with no, not that there would be any pretext or context where it'd be okay, of course, but for no reason they attacked and killed. It should be a site of mourning, not where President Trump shows up. But we know our history. There was a reason Ronald Reagan, the candidate, started his campaign in a specific place, and there's no accident that President Trump is in Tulsa tomorrow.
I think that's right. One of the things that it shows for me, outside of just sort of the brashness of the move, is just how divided the country really is. I think that we sort of are able to see people who are endorsing the trip, people who are endorsing no masks, show us the level of division that we have in the country. And I think it's a lot less about whether or not people are actually going to show up for this rally, but says a lot more about where we are in terms of race relations, the significance of Tulsa, Oklahoma, the significance of going to a place without having a conversation about the significance of the massacre that took place in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I think just speaks to where we are as a country and lets us know we still have a long way to go.
We do.
Do you mind if I just really, really fast? I just want to make sure, it's the little bit of historian in me, that people actually know what happened in Tulsa. So there was a young man who was 18 years old who was heading into an office building, got into the elevator where there was a white woman, a little bit older, in the elevator. The doors close, they go up 3 or 4 floors. When the doors open, the white woman is screaming and the young man runs out of the elevator. He later told people that what happened was when the elevator started to move, she tripped And he, as a reflexively, just sort of reached out to catch her. Um, she screamed at the top of her lungs at his touching her, even if it was inadvertent. And when the doors opened and he ran and she was left, and they asked what has happened, she said, he tried to rape me. Um, in an elevator going up 2 flights. Um, he was captured, was taken to the courthouse. Uh, the police stood by a mob for him to get him because he had tried to rape a white woman. Um, the police stood back and allowed the mob to come and get him. They lynched him, but their bloodlust was such that it wasn't enough, and so they turned and after murdering this young 18-year-old, uh, burned, killed 300 people, burned all the homes to the ground. A thriving area became a big field with just smoking ruins and dead bodies, and thousands of people were left homeless. Immediately reduced from one of the wealthiest African American areas and biggest accomplishments for relatively newly freed people who had not known freedom for that long, um, to rubble, to beggars, to paupers, and the insurance companies would not pay them for their homes. So the differences in, again, citizenship, protection, the law, police, respect for bodies, respect for Black people, um, respect for the law, white respect for the law, are all encapsulated right there in Tulsa. And sometimes people don't exactly know what happened. So I just wanted to take a second to kind of share that.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I think it's important that context really matters. I recommend Shamari Wills's book, Black Fortunes, which has a component of that, but also talks about how Black wealth is created and has been created in this country and how it's been lost, and the role that slavery played in everything that has happened ever since. And that's so important for folks to understand. I'm just going to bring onto the stage now our friend, Reverend Kenny Irby. He is a pastor and journalist and writer and teacher, and I'm proud to call him my friend. Please welcome Kenny Irby.
Reverend Irby.
Hi there, Sree. How's everybody? It's good to see you. It's great to been listening in the background, just absorbing the wisdom and the passion. It's good to be here.
Thank you. I want to share with everyone, if I could, your amazing article that you wrote. If you will tell us what this is, just starting with the title. It says, "Kneel in humility, then stand up for what's right." And there's a picture of you kneeling. The Reverend Kenny Irby kneels and prays with protesters outside St. Petersburg Police Department on June 2nd. So this was, talk about this article about your work. This is not by you, it's about you.
Well, yeah, it's not by me. It was about me. And it's a wonderful opportunity to, like so much of what we're experiencing now, to reveal some insight and context to the real meaning for why particularly African Americans are passionate about certain acts and activities. And so this was a piece. I was approached by a writer for our local newspaper here, the Tampa Bay Times, who had heard about an incident the day before where Chief Holloway and I went to the aid of a protester who had been clipped by an automobile and was lying in the streets. And we went to render aid, and then turned around and were between the police headquarters and the protesters. The protesters were between us. We had to go through the protesters to get back to the barricade, and we endured quite a bit of ridicule and harassment. And you know me, Sree, I engaged and asked the question, why couldn't we have dialogue and not diatribe? In the midst of that conversation, I was constantly asked, or it was insisted and instructed and demanded to kneel. I asked the question to a group of the protest leaders, why was that so important to them? Because I wouldn't kneel just because they wanted me to kneel. I would kneel as a man of God, as a person of faith, for a particular reason, with reverence and with humility. That led to this photograph. And somebody in the crowd said, "Let the preacher pray. Let the preacher pray." So the Spirit moved, and that created this opportunity that was documented by one of the broadcast journalists that was there. The next day, the writer asked me about that. I recounted, and he asked me in an interview what story I thought hadn't been told. And I said the significance of kneeling, the idea of taking a knee for positive reasons, not for the violent dynamic of what we saw in Minneapolis, and how George Floyd lost his life.
Thank you, Reverend. Can you just tell us about your work with the police department and how you see it fit in with the work you're doing and the context of everything going on now? I'll just read the line here. It says, Irby is pastor at the historic Bethel AME Church in St. Petersburg, the oldest predominantly African-American church in the city. He's also a former journalist, and he's director of community intervention and juvenile outreach for the police department. How do you reconcile some of the things that have been happening, working with the police for yourself, but as well as nationwide, what's happening with the protests?
Well, I wouldn't trade anything for the journey, and I never anticipated working in law enforcement in this way. The way that my journey led to this role was 5 years ago, after a very violent period here in the city of St. Petersburg, where we lost 7 young men to senseless gun violence, and I was leading the Pointer Institute in a role that I've been in for 20 years. The mayor and the chief of police independently asked me to consider staying in the area to continue some work that I had started in role modeling and life skill programs for young men. And through some conversations and real soul searching, I felt it was time. I'll tell you very honestly, I asked the Lord to give me a real challenge. I had felt like I had not given all that I could to community. I'd done a lot and been very successful in my individual work in journalism. And this opportunity came. And so I was invited to architect the original program for the city of St. Petersburg under the My Brother's Keeper initiative from President Obama. And St. Petersburg was the only city that we know of that pivoted and created the My Brothers and Sisters Keeper initiative. And so I helped to create that initiative that offered a series of programming and educational, entrepreneurial, and enrichment opportunities for 12 to 24-year-old at-risk youth. So that's, and in this past year, Chief Holloway added the juvenile outreach efforts under my umbrella. So all of the second chance programs that help to keep young people from getting a record. It's a juvenile civil citation program that's available here in the city. So we have made some tremendous inroads here in the city. And we noticed that while many other cities had very violent outbreak, here in the city, we did not have that kind of rioting. Most of our rioting was peaceful. There was no looting and burning here in the city. And we attribute a big part of that, not solely, but to the fact that we built relationships during times of calm that we were able to leverage and build on during the time of crisis that went on and that's been going on in America.
Reverend, before I bring in our other guests to maybe ask you a question or two, I want everyone to see this video that's so heartbreaking. I know you've seen it. surveillance photo of a boy playing, and as the police passes, he's like hiding behind for doing nothing in his own backyard.
That's right. Yeah.
You've seen that video. What do you make of that? What is your?
I have.
What do you say to people who don't understand that boy's thinking, that he needs to hide from the police in his own, not even backyard, in his own front yard? I'm heartbroken seeing that, because I can imagine this is not something that my son would ever have to deal with. This is the unfairness of this country, that he has grown up thinking like that. Please talk about that, and then I want our other guests to jump in as well, please.
Well, I mean, that's a reality that young Black people, not just Black boys, particularly boys, but Black people in across the diaspora feel because of the oppression that they have learned to cope with. I wrote in my CNN column, the one that I did write, that I think a big part of what we're seeing has been the normalizing of rage, and the racist system that the previous segment your guest talked about is something that we have learned to live with, and law enforcement has not been, in far too many cases, pursuing the role and the responsibility of protectors and guardians of the community, and so they're viewed as the warriors and the enemies in many of these communities where people of color live and make their habitat.
Thank you. Let me ask Brandy to respond to what she's been saying and what she's been hearing. Sorry, what we've been talking about, and then I'll ask Professor Rooks as well. Brandy.
Absolutely. Thanks again. Thanks so much. I watched that video, and like Reverend Irby said, it's everybody Black's reality. That's a young child, but I want to say that as a Black woman, as a professional, as a lawyer, none of it matters. I will be treated that same way, have that same fear for the police. One of my friends posted something on Instagram. I don't do social media, that said, being Black is checking your rear view mirror every time you pass a cop to see if he's turning around. I'm almost sure everybody on this podcast tonight can say that has happened. I mean, it just has happened. You pass a police officer, you've done absolutely nothing wrong. You're not committing any crime, but the level of nervousness I think that Black people have in interacting with the police is real and starts from that age through my age. I think it just doesn't ever stop. And so, like Reverend Irby said, it's our reality.
Professor Rooks, please go ahead. I'm going to step out, and I want the three of you to have a conversation.
Oh, sure.
Okay. Well, I wanted to say, Reverend Irby, I'm actually grew up in Clearwater, Florida, close to you in Pinellas County. Yeah. My grandparents lived in Clearwater, and I split years between my mother at San Francisco and the two of them in Clearwater. And one of the things that I thought about when we saw that image really was how intractable the tensions and the violence on behalf of the police toward Black people are. Sometimes you'll hear young people say, we've really not made a whole lot of progress. America is the same now as it's always been, which is just not true. There's some things we still need to fix, but it is just simply not the case that we haven't made progress. So we have made progress in things like voting. We have to stay vigilant. We have to stay in there and keep fighting to make sure that things don't get rolled back. But there was a time when just the idea of voting, not that they made it hard, it was impossible for Black people to vote.
Possibly, yeah.
Or just Black freedom. Right. We can talk about the shackles that are placed on Black freedom, but there's a difference between being enslaved and being oppressed. These are different things. One area that we have not, I think, as a group made real progress with is around the ways that the police, an entity that was formed during the antebellum period. The police come out of slave patrols. Like the reason we have
That's right.
organized, armed folks who are supposed to be protecting property and the public good, that property was Black people. And that public good was slave owners. So there's a raced narrative about the relationship of the police and policing to Black people up through the Black Panther Party, you know, the Black Power period. They were the Black Panther Party for armed self-defense. And the self-defense was not against random white people. It was against the ways that the police were preying on, abusing Black communities. So that remains an area in the Black freedom struggle that this is the first time that I'm hearing calls with things like defund the police, abolish the police. Like, right, let's take the money, let's take the source of their funds where they're buying tanks and rocket launchers. Like I literally saw that the school police in Los Angeles had rocket launchers and tanks. The school police, who exactly are people who are policing schools,
Right.
going to be riding down on in tanks or with rocket launchers? So take some of that funding, right, and put it into schools. They don't need tanks. I just don't think there's a universe within which the Los Angeles School District Police need a tank. But those things are expensive. So we're starting to see calls for, let's look at, what do police actually do?
Right.
Right? Like, what is it most of the time? Most of the time, what do they spend time doing? And I can say, and then I'll stop. The last 3 times that I called the police, and it's a hard thing as a Black person to call the police. Once, my father, who's living in Clearwater, we could not get in touch with him. He was older. He was having some health challenges. He wouldn't answer the phone. Family members, you know, were going, he wouldn't answer. He changed the locks, so nobody had a key to the house, unbeknownst to any of us. So at some point we did a wellness check. You know, police will go and check on your loved ones. The first time they went, he was in there. They scared him to death. Nothing bad happened. The second time he had passed and had been there about 2 weeks. And I think, you know, what other options, there should have been other options other than sending the police on this kind of errand twice. Once a upstairs neighbor was in the middle of a domestic dispute and was just getting wailed on. And my husband and I were like, we're not not able to run in there, bust down the door and you know, intervene, but we were hearing her be brutalized. And so we finally called the police. But again, these are those situations should not be as soul searching as they are. And they really should not be the reasons to call, maybe for the beating, but certainly not for a wellness check. So we're at a point where people are kind of like, well, what do the police actually do? What are we funding them to do? And maybe we should talk about reallocating that money somewhere else.
I think that's really important, and you're right on the reality that the police department's history is definitely one that's in line with racist intent and creation. And now in the 21st century, everything that happens within a society is also added to the police department. Homeless people shouldn't be getting a call, but we get the calls from law enforcement to deal with behavioral health issues. And quite honestly, you're absolutely right. And we're moving in that direction in St. Petersburg. You might recall Chief Holloway, our chief now, was a chief in Clearwater. And has been nationally known for implementing the Park Walk and Talk strategy that really does bring law enforcement back to building relationships during times of calm, working out alternative strategies for community building and as a part of that guardian role. And it takes time. We've reached out to the faith community to be a part. I just came in tonight. That's why I'm in my t-shirt and my Not My Son t-shirt. One of our youth campaigns is to stop violence and connect young people in inner city communities with resource programs, the cohort of champions and men in the making, and those kinds of activities that redirect the energy and create opportunities for young people in our communities. And that's heavily, that work emanates from within the police department. Does it have to? Should it? And in most places, people would say no. But you know, every community is different. And here in St. Petersburg, we have that kind of momentum, and we're building on that.
I think it really matters.
Brandy, I'm sorry, I can't hear you, so that's my challenge. I see the passion.
Nothing. Can you hear me now? Nothing. You can hear nothing.
No, so I'm going to ask Reverend Irby to just step. I'm just going to ask him to leave the studio and come back in. Sometimes that fixes the problem, so he's going to do that. Meanwhile, we're just going to do welcome some other folks and their comments. Or Kenny, if you just step out and step back in, we'll bring you right back. Thank you. Let's see if now Kenny can't hear me either. Can you hear me, Brandy?
Hear nobody. Kenny, can't hear you. Nothing.
Okay. So 1 second. So we were hearing Brandy. You can hear me though, right?
Yes, I can actually hear you.
I can hear.
Yes,
and I could hear both of you too. And I heard every word that Kenny said. I stepped out because I felt that I wanted to hear the three of you talk, and it was a beautiful thing to hear the three of you sharing your insights and your thoughts. Let's just look at some of the other comments that have been coming in. Jacqueline says, "Tell it, Dr. Rooks," and Denise says, "Congrats." Lippy is here. Lippy Roy was our very first guest. Dr. Lippy Roy was our first guest, and soon after she came on, they snatched her up at NBC and MSNBC, and she's now a doctor on their network, and so we're very proud of her. We're also joined by Jacqueline Dolly, who says racist signifying is at an all-time high, and I think that's really important. And I want to tell you all that she's our guest tomorrow. We're very excited to have her. Tomorrow we're trying something different. We've been talking about all the problems. Well, let's look ahead, and with the terrible unemployment problem, what are we going to do to help everyone of all backgrounds? And so we brought a terrific career strategist to be with us, and Jacqueline Dolly is going to be here. Check out her website, Be Do Have Results. And she's a work culture architect, performance optimizer, breakthrough navigator, and much more. And she'll be with us tomorrow at 9 p.m. Eastern on a Saturday, sharing information, but also never forgetting the issues at hand, because we definitely want to talk about them also with her and everybody else who's watching. Let's just see a couple more comments, and then we'll come back to you. Apollo says, Tulsa is no different from what we see in places where social classes are targeted for liquidations to enfeeble the rest, like the Poles during Hitler's invasion. We have just so many comments coming in. Therese is here, says congratulations. Thought-provoking and welcoming a global community. Very, very grateful. Renee is here. Renee has been a supporter from day one, arranged for lots of different folks to come in and be sponsors for us. We're very grateful. Bill Mitchell says happy Juneteenth from Bill in Boston. And this is not the other, is that Bill Mitchell, who's famous online, a right-wing person. This is the good Bill Mitchell. And Bill is a former colleague of Reverend Kenny Irby. And if Kenny can hear us, or if my producers can message him from the calendar invite to say we want him back, he just has to reboot and come back. We'd love to have him. And Jennifer says that Brandy is a wonderful ambassador for Justice Aid and is a justice hero. And here is Mark saying that a good friend of his is the W.E. Du Bois professor at Duke and a big fan of reparations. Now, let me say to Professor Rooks what I said to you when I met you. What an unbelievable legacy to be the W.E. Du Bois professor. And what does that mean to you today? And not enough people still know all the things that he did and the influence he had. Could you talk about him for a couple of minutes for us, please?
Oh, sure, yeah. Du Bois, Professor Du Bois was a Renaissance kind of figure. He is renowned as an organizer, a philosopher, an intellectual, He's considered the father of sociology, not Black sociology, but the practice of sociology. With his groundbreaking work, The Philadelphia Negro, where he actually went and collected data, hard data, like let's talk about what is happening in Black working class and poor communities. He was a co-founder of the NAACP, uh, uh, editor of Crisis Magazine, one of the first magazines to really draw together Black artistic
Hey, Sree.
opining about it with Black freedom struggles. He changed a lot. Like his philosophy over time really went from not accommodationist, but as someone who wanted to explain, who really truly believed if we could just explain to white people who they are and who we are as Black people, they'll stop. They'll get their foot off of our neck. Over the arc of his life, he ended really believing America was broken, irredeemably so, and that he died in Ghana in exile, and calling for a kind of global Black freedom struggle rooted in intellectual thought that was about Black freedom. He's a complex figure, and it is a complete honor to have a chair that has his name.
Thank you. We wanted to show some of the other comments coming in. Joy says, wish you all the best. Thousands of episodes to bring the different perspectives all over the world. I hope it's not thousands in the years ahead. Jacqueline says, a major indictment of our law enforcement system is that police believe that they either have unchecked power to do as they will, or they withdraw their services. There is no middle ground. We saw that today. Police officers going on strike, in effect, in
Atlanta.
Yeah, in Atlanta. Just how is that possible? Brandy, can you explain some of that for us, please?
I think there's just a lot of resentment. I think police officers absolutely believe, and it's based in the law, quite honestly, that they are immune. I mean, right? There's an actual statute that discusses qualified immunity. That is, no matter what a police officer does, 9 times out of 10, a jurisdiction where they work is going to allow them to get away with whatever crime. They're not able to be sued. The departments are not able to be held liable. And when police officers see district attorneys, prosecutors' offices lodging charges against police officers when they thought that they could not be held accountable in that way, there's a lot of resent. And I feel like that's why they walked out in Atlanta. I don't think it's going to be the first or the last time we see it happen. As you know, we're waiting on, the Black community is waiting on charges in the Breonna Taylor murder. And so I can imagine that if and when those charges come, there will be police officers who resent the fact that those officers have been charged in that way. And, you know, we saw it today there as well. There's the police officer who's going to be fired. And if his conduct was so egregious, right, that it's eligible for termination, how has he remained on the books for 3 months? What was not fireable 3 months ago? And so I think that you see officers who get upset when they are held accountable, and there's a lot of resent surrounding that kind of accountability.
Sure. Now, Professor Rooks, what do you think about where we go from here? I want to, we're going to move on to our next hour, and I've already kept you past 10 o'clock time. I just want to ask you, what gives you hope? What gives you hope for all of us as we're trying to understand this very complex time we're living in? Oh, sorry, 1 second. We're just going to, sorry, go ahead.
Okay. So the times that we've actually seen systemic change come about, some of the ingredients that have been included in that have been global, multiracial, generational calls for change. I'm thinking about the civil rights movement, certainly. I'm thinking about the abolitionist movement. When the battle is joined, and when the cry is freedom, we see, again, it's not perfect. They're not waving a wand, not all bad things are going away. But we see substantive progress moving forward. And what has happened that is, I think, caught many unawares is this is a global, you have people in Brisbane, people in London, people in Paris, you know, tens of thousands, as well as I think all 50 states have had major protests saying, you know, stop killing Black people. Now the calls are becoming more robust, right? Like, we want to see equity, we want to see justice, we want educational equity, we want in corporate America, we want to see things different, we want full employment. Like, the calls are changing, but what called forth those bodies into the street had to do with the murders of unarmed Black people. That's just hopeful, because that I believe, what I know, what the world has taught me, is that when you have those pieces in place, you change can come. Change is coming, and so I have faith. I believe. I'm not a person of deep faith a lot of the time. I tend towards cynicism, but here I have faith that we will see some substantive changes. But as Angela Davis says, freedom is a constant struggle. So the other thing I would say is, we can't expect this moment of protest to deliver everything we want for freedom. But I think something's coming. I believe something's coming. And so that gives me hope.
Well, that gives me goosebumps. So I'm grateful for that. Before you go, the professor has to be asked about the fall and how you're feeling about online learning this summer and spring, and where are you on that continuum, and how are you doing?
I can, luckily for me, I teach at a school that is giving professors the choice of how they want to teach, but in a larger kind of conversation, the thing about returning universities, schools, K through 12, as well as higher education, to full capacity, is what we know are the people who are most at risk and most impacted, are the most vulnerable. So on college campuses, you know, we'd be thinking about the janitorial folks, the maintenance people who clean up after the students, who serve the students food. They're the people who are going to be most at risk. And much of the conversation about should we come back or not really revolves around the students. Can we keep students safe? So in some ways, as the conversation unrolls, again, though I am privileged to be at a school that is, you know, saying you don't have to have a doctor's note, you don't have to, you know, open up your medical records and convince us that you shouldn't be in the classroom. Just the fact that we're in a global pandemic and you don't want to teach face-to-face is, for the moment, enough. But that's not the case other places, at other schools, where they're being told you can be fired if you do not come and perform, you know, your job. And so even people who PhD having people who don't think of themselves as essential workers in the ways that we've been talking about who essential workers are and what they have to do, are faced with, do you want your paycheck, or do you want your health? And I think all of these choices that we're being asked to make is a part of why you see people out in the street saying this is a society that's sick. It's a society that's ill, that forces people into those kinds of choices without thinking in any kind of way creatively about what else we could do. So I guess everybody's opening up. Everybody seems really committed to it. Doesn't seem to be going well many places where it happens. However, we're committed to it. But I hope that folks will really keep a mind out for the least of these, who as is always the case, those are the folks who are going to struggle and be impacted.
Thank you so much, Professor. We're very grateful for your time tonight, and I hope you wouldn't mind joining us again in a future episode.
Oh, of course. I love y'all, and congratulations again. 100 episodes. That is no small thing.
I'm just going to.
This is what my students do. My students don't clap, right? My students do this, right? So now I'm like giving you all the snaps.
That's right. Before you go, I'm just going to show once again your tweet, and if you wouldn't mind reading it to us again, We loved your rendition of it, and the words have so much meaning. So I'm going to put that on the screen.
So, Juneteenth is not the day all Black people in the world were emancipated. Is not the day all Black people in the United States were emancipated, since a few states waited for the 13th Amendment to be ratified. Is not the day Black people became citizens. Is not the end of the freedom story.
Thank you so much. We'll leave it there with you at that. At @nrookie, please follow her. She's anything but a rookie. She's a veteran who is a wonderful writer, teacher. We had one of her students on with us the last time. @Poverty Scholar was with us, and we learned so much together with Professor Michener. Now she's a professor, and so are you. And so it was a great moment on the radio, and I got both of them talking after a while, even though they're both at Cornell. So thank you very much, and we'll see you. I'm going to talk to Brandy and then bring on our other guests. Thank you,
Okay,
Professor.
bye-bye.
Brandy, up to your thoughts. Give us some hope as we go forward, please.
So I will give you hope, but I also want to tell you and your audience what gives me hope. And as a Black woman, what gives me hope is being Black. What I mean when I say that is to know that the struggle that my ancestors went through, that is from that transatlantic slave trade to make it to the shores of America, set up shop, and my family coming from Texas, I realize that if those folks can get over that, I can do anything. And I think the words that I give to your audience in terms of giving other folks hope is Frederick Douglass said, where there is no struggle, there is no progress. I think we see the struggle. I think we've been going through the struggle. And on the other end of that is, in fact, progress. So I just thank you for having me. I thank you for bringing attention to issues that have not been spoken about for so long in society, for giving us a voice around Juneteenth. Again, I want to shout out my friends and family in Texas. Obviously, this is a big holiday for us. And so, again, I think there's a lot of hope with the freedom fighters that are in the streets now. I think there's a lot of hope moving forward, and I look to the light at the end of the tunnel.
Thank you very much. We can't let you go without asking about the pictures behind you.
That is my daddy. That is my daddy from, he's from Monticello, New York. And in the spirit of honoring our ancestors, I have him right up there on my wall.
And those are all him?
That's right.
All of them. Okay.
All of them. All of them. Well, my mom had them done for me when I graduated from law school. So, yep, that's my daddy.
All right. Please, we're thinking of him, and we're very grateful to you and your family. Thank you very much for being here, and we'll say goodnight to you as we continue the show.
Thank you, and thank you for Justice Aid for having me.
Thank you. And folks, that was just the first part of our show. There's a special 2-hour edition of the Daily COVID-19 show. I want to bring back Kenny Irby, who dropped out, and he's here again with us. And then we have a very special guest who's also joining us. Hi, Kenny. Thanks for coming back.
Hey, no problem, Sree. You know, it's my honor.
Thank you. So if you wouldn't mind hanging out with us for a little while, you tell us when you have to leave. We'll give you a chance to chat before you go. But I want to bring on now Amber Coleman, who is our guest. Hi, Amber. How are you doing?
Hi. How are you? How's everyone tonight?
This is, by the way, her Twitter handle is fabulous. She's mom of all capes. So she, Superman, Wonder Woman, they all have capes. So she's at mom of all capes. That is Irby Man, at Irby Man. Meet at mom of all capes. And I'm going to bring on our producers, Rose Horowitz and Vandana Menon, and they're going to have a little conversation with all of us about some of the work that's going on. This is our second hour of the show, and we're just so grateful to have you all here. Rose and Vandana, our producers, they worked, Kenny, with me for 100 straight days, and they joined when the show had 3 people watching, and we just got started. So we're very grateful to them. I want to have Rose set up why we asked Amber to come back. She was just with us a few weeks ago. She did an amazing episode on how to talk to your kids about race. And she had her 3 beautiful daughters with us. And the 4 of them did a show together with us on how to think about race. They have the Let's K-12 Better podcast that you all have to check out. So Rose, go ahead and set this up, and then we'll show the image of the amazing work that Amber did just today.
Terrific. Hi, Amber.
Hi.
Hi, everyone. Amber, you are amazing in many ways. One, you're the mother of those 3 daughters who were so amazingly, so terrifically, and gave such great answers when we had them on our.
Sorry,
in a glance, which is terrific.
Awesome, thank you.
Tell us about your work with. Can you tell us a little about where you are, or tell us about this, what you created, and then we'll go backwards from there. Thank you.
So I actually just put the list together. I want to give a shout out to Elan, who put this awesome graphic together from the list that I created. So I worked with Gender Avenger to do work to elevate women's voices in the public space. And that's like online, on TV, in your boardroom, wherever women's voices are not. And so, you know, for Juneteenth, we were thinking about like, what are the ways that we can think about how to celebrate this moment in time where we're all focused on Juneteenth, we're all focused on this idea of liberation and elevating freedom, right? And then thinking about like, where's the place where the intersections are, where women, LGBTQIA folks, right? And what are their voices, right? And so this list kind of is an historic and contemporary bit of homage to a lot of the Black feminist, womanist, you know, thinking and, you know, ideologies across the span of history, right? So, you know, we have like Fannie Lou Hamer, who, you know, everyone knows she's just an amazing freedom fighter from the state of Mississippi, did a lot to help people register to vote down there when registering to vote was a life or death experience. Obviously, we have Sojourner Truth, who gave that really amazing speech, Ain't I a Woman? So we have that link there. You know, and then we have the mothers who like Ida B. Wells and, you know, Dorothy Height. But I also wanted to mix in the contemporary voices, you know, of newer thinkers like Dr. Treva Lindsay and, you know, Joan Morgan, right? So I wanted to make a mix, a long timeline of voices. Obviously, 19 slots. You know, it's hard to pick who gets to come and who doesn't. That was definitely a challenge. But, you know, wanted to just provide also a range of experiences and voices and ways of expressing yourself, right? So not just speeches and not just, you know, first person accounts. We wanted to provide poetry as well. So that's kind of the idea of what this is. I hope that people check it out. I would encourage you to purchase these books from a Black-owned bookstore, right? You know, so shout out to that. If you can, we've linked you know, a list of different ones that you can find right there. So yeah, so that's this list.
Yeah, Black-owned bookstores. I see that right there. That's terrific. What are some brand names that people should know?
So brand names, like as far as bookstores or as far as thinkers?
You know, the bookstores, yeah.
Oh, bookstores. I am not quite well versed in that, and that's why I linked it. You know, because I did not know like where should I send people. So I was like, where can I find information so I can get people to where they want to be?
Thank you. Perfect. Rose, go ahead.
Yeah. I was going to ask you about the movement, the Black poets. I see we have Audre Lorde here, and can you talk about that a little bit? And we have who is else? Well, Toni Morrison is poetry in her novels, and we were able to have on this show. We had Sapphire as a guest and Nikki Grimes.
Awesome. Yeah. So again, I didn't want to just provide nonfiction accounts, right? Or you know, even where you have like sociology and anthropology, right? I wanted to make sure that we allow for space to elevate art. I think, you know, for Black people and Black women, like we speak through drums, we speak through music, right? We speak through movement. Artistry is just an important part of the way that Black people express themselves. So I did want to pay homage to people like Ntozake Shange. You know, that's a play of, you know, and in fact, Treva B. Lindsay, Dr. Lindsay, whose book Colored No More, she actually and I are college friend. So I watched her put this play on, and that's how I became introduced to Ntozake Shange. I was like, for color girls, this is amazing. So, that's, I just want to make sure that we just lift up artistry during this time of turmoil, during this time of trauma for people, right? And just remind people to create, right? Like, and also respect the creative, right? Respect the creative voices within the Black female space. So.
Thank you so much.
That's a wonderful list.
It's a great list. Kenny, do you want to comment on it?
I was just saying that, yeah, as the father of 4 daughters, I'm looking at, works that my wife and I have shared with our girls, and it really does help build a sense of identity and hopefulness when they see what other African American women have done, as Brandy was saying earlier, against what appeared to be insurmountable odds. So that tenacity of the human spirit that it's manifested itself in Black folk is really special and needs to be a part of the broader curriculum in this country that's been neglected for so long.
Absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I could not agree more. And I hope, for me, this list is aspirational, right? Like, my daughters have read some of these thinkers. They're still 12, 11, and 9. So some of it, they have to wait to read. But, like just them to kind of formulate, like, what is my identity, right? The Black experience is not a monolith, so like there's a beautiful tapestry of what Black people are and what Black people have experienced and how we express our love for self and our hope for a better life. And so, I just wanted to kind of convey that with this list. I wanted to elevate as many voices as possible.
Thank you. I think, I don't know if I can say this, but it seems like in the media we hear more about the Black men leaders who have been leading the struggle for civil rights than we do about the women.
Yeah, unfortunately, because Diane Nash was doing amazing things, right? Like, she's another woman who were like, hey, like, let's push her up there and elevate her in this time too. I do want to say, I have a lot of conversations with people about, what does liberation look like, especially when we're talking about Juneteenth, right? Like, what does liberation look like? When we talk about liberation and freedom, especially in my home, we think of it in the context of, we do not want to exchange anti-racism with like more patriarchy. So we don't want to say, when we are fighting for and pushing for, an anti-racist society, we don't necessarily want to say, okay, like at the expense of Black women and LGBTQIA folks. We want to make sure that all people, right? We're all pushing here and we're all together. So we're not trading like, Black liberation for Black patriarchal liberation and then everybody else.
Can I ask you that question? What do you try to tell your daughters, Kenny?
Well, actually, I'm leaving tonight. My daughters, our youngest is 27, 30, and 33. So they've developed their own really strong self-identity by as you look behind me, artworks and expressions of literature that we have. They talk about this room as a museum because they're always being reinforced with their history and their potential. So one of the things that women of color have contributed, or Black women we're talking about here tonight, have been able to is to be near superhuman, right? So I like the idea of the Wonder Women in our families and our communities that have, in my own experience, that have taken little and created much. And so that idea of the potential and the possibilities that they have are boundless. And so we've been intentional about allowing them to figure out their own space and not do it the way we did it, but to and not necessarily walk in our path, but create new avenues for themselves and the future.
It's great to hear. Amber, any favorites right now of the 19 women from your daughters that they love?
Yeah, so favorites right now, we're reading Audre Lorde as a bedtime story. Just like putting the ideas of, like feminist thought in their mind before they go to sleep. Like, what are your dreams? And then in hopes of what are your dreams, like whose shoulders are you already standing on? So shout out to you, Kenny, for that. You're absolutely right. How do we build off of these ideas so that we can make the world better for the people who are coming next? And so Audre Lorde is definitely a favorite. Mm-hmm. I recommend everyone, if you don't want to start off with a book, read Sojourner's Truth, Ain't I a Woman, right? Like just read that speech. And that's a great introduction into the intersections. Kimberly Crenshaw talks about intersectionality, right? So read into that one to give you kind of an idea of like, what is the Black female experience? And then move from there. It would be my recommendation.
I just wanted to step in here and remind everyone who hasn't seen this yet to go back and watch this incredible interview that we were able to do with the Mall of all Capes and her 3 Capettes. I don't know what we call them, but these amazing daughters who were Naima, Amber, Sophia, and Garvey were all together, and they used one camera and just talked up a storm. And I even learned that I shouldn't be calling them young ladies. I should be calling them women, not even young ladies, girls. And so we learned a lot, and I'm so grateful for that evening. That's one of the many things we've learned during this show. You can find all our archives on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Sreenet. And please go in and watch this episode. It was about a couple of weeks ago, and I learned a lot in this 80-something, wasn't it, Amber? I think 80-something.
Yeah. And the kids had so much fun. They were like, oh my God, that was amazing. So thank you so much, Sree, for the opportunity. They loved it. They loved it. They're fans of you now.
Thank you. And I promised them ice cream in New York when you folks come up. I just want to note that between our, so Rose and I are, for people who are watching for the first time, Rose and I are producers of the show, and our 2 guests are Amber and Kenny. Between those, our 2 guests, they have 7 daughters. And I want to hear from Kenny secrets of getting your kids, or especially your daughters, to 27. Our twins are 17, a boy and a girl. And you and I met 25 years ago in 1995 when I came out with Pointer, and the girls were very young. Obviously, some of them were not yet around. Some of them were already born. Talk about that and put that in context. We saw that video, horrifying video earlier of that young boy. How is it different for Black girls that you have seen in your work? And as we let you go for tonight, talk a little bit about hope and what gives you hope and what should give us hope looking ahead.
Well, certainly my daughter's 2020, in spite of COVID, the economic collapse, and now the what some interpret as civil unrest in the country. I think, as was already stated, there's no progress with struggle. I think that Frederick Douglass quote is very apropos. Our daughters are our biological, our oldest daughter is actually adopted. You know that story. And then we have 3 biological daughters. In 2020, one's getting married in October, and tonight one was just, her labor was induced, and she's scheduled to deliver tomorrow morning sometime. So
wait! Oh my God!
I'm finished. This is the last thing I'm doing. I'm taking a shower, get a couple hours of sleep, and I'm getting on the road headed to Tallahassee in the morning.
Oh my
just because you're my friend.
Thank you. I'm so.
But yeah. So Kimberly has her PhD. Our oldest daughter, our middle daughter, Kenitra, is starting her doctorate in ministry. She has her MDiv from Duke. And Kara is a major producer and with the Florida League of Cities now after a career in journalism. And Kachura, who's his youngest, who's scheduled to be married and in New Orleans in October 2020. She's a social worker here in Florida. So they all they're grown, graduated, and almost all married as when we get to October. They're fabulous women. They're strong. They're independent. And that's been a challenge for some of their husbands because we've as I said, we've inspired them to blaze their own trail, and build off the foundation that their mom and I have been privileged to offer them. I see promise for the future. You know, we have a youth program, Men and Women in the Making, that we have 55 boys and 37 girls in right now, and we've been doing youth outreach for 37 years. And in the resiliency of young people when they have an identity that is embedded with hope, and they understand that the things that they will accomplish will come from hard work, and love will lead to justice, and they are committed to justice work in every aspect, and they have a relationship with the Creator, so they have a sense of positive identity, and they know that their work is to make the world better. And that's what we've always continued to instill in them. And we actually do that with every young person that we have the privilege of interacting with. And we do that same work from within our community efforts. And so our children have been raised to be leaders and not followers. And I think that's the spirit that we have to nurture in our children. And there's unfortunately so many of the young people that we work with in the community, to be very honest, upon first engagement are hopeless, because no one has ever taken the time to authenticate and validate their potential. And once you've done that, possibilities are boundless. So I'm hopeful. I've spent time every day. I go to the Hill where our young protesters are gathering here. And I had a conversation with another friend of ours tonight who's moved here. I don't know if you remember Clayton Sizemore, but he used to be at CNN in New York.
Yeah.
And we were out doing our rally tonight. And he said to me, Kenny, this work we have to do, we have to step back and not be out front and let them shape this new path, advise them, encourage them, and let them lead now. And I think that's something people of our era have to do now, and keep hope alive from within and behind the ranks.
Thank you.
I'm very hopeful.
And I'm so grateful, and I want you to leave so that you can get ready and drive to your daughter. In Tallahassee.
Get some rest. But thank you so much, Amber. It was a pleasure.
Yes.
The shirt says, "Not my son." This is our program. Not another son of the city will die to senseless violence. That's been the thematic thrust of the effort. Yeah.
Thank you.
And on the back is stronger together. Right there.
You're really, I just want to say you're really a model, and your grandkids are so lucky to have you, as well as your daughters. It's really, really inspiring to hear you speak about how you raised them. Thank you.
Thank you, Kenny, and I'll let you go. Thank you very much.
Right. Congratulations.
And you'll come back in a few. You'll come back in a few months. Show us your baby in a photograph. Okay.
Well, I have to go document the continued evolution of the birth. So, all right, take care. Bye now.
Thank you very much. For folks who don't know, Kenny is a wonderful photographer. He used to teach photography at the at Poynter Institute, and big thanks to Stephen Kaplan, our friend, who brought him into our show today. Mom of all capes, we got to let you go. Be with your family. It's a Saturday.
Let her say something. She's going to be on the New York Times having a conversation with Tara Pope.
Oh, yes. So I hope that everyone can join. I will be having another wonderful conversation with the wonderful Tara Parker Pope. We will be discussing how to raise a socially conscious, anti-racist child. So we'll be open for questions. So essentially an extension of our conversation, Sree. So like, bring your questions, bring, the things that are pressing on your heart that you'd like to know. Hopefully I can find an answer for that, or at least point you in the direction of where to go. But that is Wednesday, the 24th at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
And they can find that, where can they find it?
They can find that on the New York Times live events page.
Nice.
Yes.
Don't forget us now that you're hitting the big time, huh?
Sree, are you kidding me?
Say hi.
Never.
Say hi
Thank
to
you
the
so
women.
much, Amber. Great to see you. Say hi to your girls for us.
I definitely will. Thank you all.
Little woman.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. And everybody, please follow at Mom of All Capes and at Irby Man. So Rose, I'm going to let you get a little break. We're going to bring Vandana on, and she's going to, and I want you to come back at the end of the show as we'll talk tomorrow.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, Rose. Thank you. That was a great conversation. Thank you all for watching. We have about another half hour to go. There's a special 2-hour edition of our 100th episode. I'm learning so much. I know you are. Please share with a friend right now. I want to bring a couple of folks here. Vandana Menon, our producer, two producers, Rose and Vandana. And Vandana is going to help me now as we talk to a couple of very interesting folks who have joined us. Let's bring on Jonathan Borstein, who has been here for 100 shows, and now he's on the air with us after watching. Always first to watch. Hi, Jonathan.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm okay. Things are more or less quiet at the moment. We had another bit of demonstrations at Union Square earlier during the day.
And we're just very grateful to have you here. I'm going to have you and Vandana just chat a little bit. Vandana is going to talk to you about what it's like to watch this show for 100 episodes and some of your favorite moments. And then we're going to bring on another friend who's been both behind the camera and in front of the camera with us. So we start with you, Vandana. Go ahead.
Hi, Jonathan. First of all, thank you so much for watching for 100 straight days. That's amazing. I mean, you comment. I've been seeing your comments, and you give us such an update on what's happening on the ground. What has been the most impactful day over the last 100 days at Union Square?
I think for me, it was how it really did the same thing as Katrina did in New Orleans. It ripped off the lid on what had been kept rather suppressed and not seen. In this case of Union Square things is how COVID sort of ripped off the lid on how much things like COVID, like police brutality or state violence, if you will, affects people of color in general and the African American community in particular. It was quite an explosion. It's still going on. The demonstrations aren't over yet. They're not always at Union Square anymore, but they're still there.
Mm-hmm. And when you look back over the last couple of days, like, I mean, the last 100 days, which show has stood out to you? And I know we've been talking a lot about how this pandemic has, exactly like you said, laid bare all of these inequalities. And Sree was talking about this the other day, how we're really looking at 3 different kinds of pandemics. I mean, we're looking at 3 different kinds of crises. We're looking at a pandemic, the protests that are happening over police brutality, and an economic crisis. We've tried to speak to that in our show. What has stood? Which episode has stood out to you?
It's I feel in a very strange way that I get more information and better information off of the COVID call than I necessarily get off of the regular newscasts, because in here there is more context, there is in some cases more depth or detail. Some of the details are quirky, which are fun. Some of them are quite telling. I'm not sure there's a true one or two standout moments. For me, it has been more of an overall sense of people getting together, trying to talk to one another, find out what is going on, analyze it, see what they can do. I think I've said to Sree once, perhaps a comment, it gives shape to my day. It's also something to look forward to for those reasons.
I have one last question. What this show has been, it's helped kind of anchor my days, because I've had such unstructured days while being in quarantine. What has this show meant to you as someone who's been watching for 100 days? Yeah.
As I said, it's an anchor. It's a way of connecting with other people who are interested in the topic on a more serious level than just a news headline. It is also, as someone who is also making certain that I am still connecting with people. I am by nature an introvert, so it's important to remember to get out of the house and talk to people, except I'm sheltering in place. I'm a senior citizen, rather like Sapphire's. Yes, I'd like to go out and join a demonstration, but not a good idea when you're in your 7th decade. So it has that sort of meaning to me. I sometimes refer to it as Sree's coffee clutch, because it has that degree of friendliness and intimacy, and so something to look forward to.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah.
So I just wanted to come in here and just first show show Jonathan's Twitter handle. It's 1003, Jonathan 1003. I presume that's your zip code, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It is the Union Square zip code, oddly enough.
Of course it is. And tell us, well, a writer, urban ecologist, and a flaneur.
Well, no. Urban ecology reflects my interest in how cities develop, for good or for bad. And to be fair, in some cases, it's kind of neither. One of my hot interests right now really came out of some other groups of protesters against gentrification, which has unfairly targeted minority groups. And the question that I had was there really an analogy with what was happening there with, say, state violence and things of that nature through a system known as forensic architecture? I, in fact, took a course in it. The short answer is yes. Will it be a longer answer? When I can go out and do some more research, there may be. But the way it is targeted destroys not only, in many cases, a viable minority neighborhood, but it also upsets the overall ecology of the environment. If you go back to Jane Jacobs, she discusses multi-use versus single-use neighborhoods. The more multivalent, or the more uses a neighborhood has, the more vibrant it has. But multi-use neighborhoods also tend to be middle class, lower middle class, working class.
And the third description, the third word you used to describe it.
A fine 19th century term, which is having a little bit of a moment right now, oddly enough. There's even a book, How to Flaneur, not written by me, I should add. A flaneur is essentially a kind of a person who does mindful or deliberate wanderings. It's sort of serendipity with a purpose. You're sort of letting things happen, but you're also looking for what is happening. So I sometimes refer to it as a boulevardier having an existential crisis. The existential crisis is you're defined by what you find.
Okay, well, Jonathan, thank you so much for your being here and being such a great supportive voice. We know on days where we may have no viewers, we'll have one viewer for sure. And
I
people
think
are.
that was only the first show.
Yeah. If our first show, you might have been our only person watching. And we have look at Christine saying, admire Jonathan's loyalty, 100 shows, and Jonathan's artwork. Mark is asking about. But Jonathan, stick around. We're going to bring another guest on in just a second, and we're just so grateful to you, Jonathan. Thank you for being here. Thank you. Before we bring on our guest, I want to show everyone a fun way that we developed to have folks send in their greetings. And we're using a tool called Flipgrid to do that. And here's a greeting from someone who has made this show possible in ways that even Vandana may not quite know yet. So we're going to show this to her and to everybody. This is a greeting from the founder of StreamYard, the service that makes this possible. Here we go.
Hey Sree, Gage from StreamYard here. I just wanted to congratulate you on episode 100. It's been so amazing seeing you go live every single day and bringing people together during these uncertain times. You've had so many amazing guests, and I can't wait to be on that guest list in the future.
And that's pretty cool. So let's do some more of these. Let's look at a couple of more of these. And so he's the founder of StreamYard, folks. It was nice to have him here.
Hey, Sree, I just wanted to say hello. This is Tim McDonald from Tampa, Florida. So great to have you on the Business of Speaking show with me earlier today, a very special day where you're celebrating your 100th episode. It's just been an amazing 3+ months of watching you every day share and have amazing guests, and to see those guest lists just grow and grow and grow with amazing people that you're having coming on your show. So congrats on 100 episodes. Hopefully we don't need to keep it going too long, but I know you will be there if we do.
That was nice. Okay, let's see who else is here. This is Paula from...
It's Paula from Big Green Pen. I just want to congratulate you on your 100th episode, and thank you for bringing us all together. I'm trying to think of a favorite moment, but there are quite a few. Definitely Sapphire's appearance and the time we spent recently talking about Nick Kristof and Cheryl Wooden and their observations and the First Amendment. And I know this sounds a little cheesy, but the fact that we built such a great community is as important as the phenomenal guests. I'm grateful to have had a small part behind the scenes once in a while, and grateful to have seen how much work you put into this and into making it a consistent opportunity for people to be together. So congrats again on your 100th episode.
Thank you. That's Paula. She's awesome. Let's see who else is watching. Oh, we saw this already. That was Mark. Mark was our first person to send it in.
Hi, this is Renee, and I want to say congratulations to Sreenivasan and Rose Horowitz and Vandana Menon for 100 shows of COVID. May this too shall pass. Thank you for keeping me sane and optimistic and happy. We love you.
Actually, Sree, I wanted to ask you, which has been your favorite moment?
Oh, wow. That's tough. I've been trying to figure out, trying to think about, there's so many that just all kind of blend together. Mm-hmm. One of the things about doing a daily program like this that I don't recommend to anybody, right? Like every single day, not even a weekend off or anything, only possible because of the support of the two of you and Rose and Vandana, but also everybody in the audience. So I'm not going to, it's like you'd love all your children, all 100 of our children. I'm just very, very grateful to everybody for being here. Let's ask Rose if she has a favorite. I know she got to produce several that she leaders, big stars. You talk about that, and then we're going to bring on our guest, Bob Anthony, who's been with us. He's actually a viewer and also a host sometimes and a guest sometimes. It's been great. Go ahead, Rose.
Well, one of my favorite shows was we did a Connecticut under COVID. And that was like, sometimes people tweet us or text us, hey, can you have me on? And this was like, I just started from scratch and found people in the community who were leaders and this was before the death of the murder of George Floyd. So like 2 weeks before that, and we did a show about how COVID-19 is disproportionately affecting minorities and the underserved in Connecticut, but as a reflection of what's going on in the country. So I was proud that we did that. And I guess, of course, I'm especially pleased to get Sapphire on the show. And she was just so eloquent and powerful. And I know her a little bit prior to that. So, but she just, was incredible. And of course, having Rupa and Kelly Hoey. And a shout out to my family and my husband who helped do a children's book authors show, which was really a lot of fun.
Yeah, that was one of our best shows. We just laughed and laughed for. We had 4 awesome authors, and a big shout out to your husband Alan for being with us as well. He was great. So let's bring on Bob Anthony, have him say hi to us and share some of his thoughts. Bob was on our 3rd show, and then he's come back multiple times because he and Vandana have hosted with me a very popular segment called News You Missed. And the reason we started that was because Bob Anthony told me about some news I missed. Hi, Bob.
Hey, Sree. Always good to Hey, Vandana. Hi, Roy.
Hi.
Thank you for being here. Bob is one of my, I was going to say more seasoned friends in New York, right, Bob? We go back a long way. He is a Columbia man like me, but he went to Columbia undergrad. I went to and studied and taught at Columbia Journalism School, but we know each other for 20 plus years. He's a former president of the New York Society of Professional Journalists chapter known as the Deadline Club. He's also president of the New York Association of Black Journalists. But more importantly, he's a tech writer, and he is a veteran tech writer who has 1.2 million followers on Pinterest. So everyone should, if you're on Pinterest, you want to follow him, but also on Twitter, everywhere, he's at New York Bob. Very easy to find. Bob, what do you think of today? I know you were watching at least some parts of it.
I'm just impressed, first of all, that you managed to get through the 100 days. That's just incredible, Sree. I really appreciate the community you brought together here and the interesting guests. I always get the inside track on something, like the gentleman from the Parks department that you had on the other day. When you talked about his whole SHIT moment, when he found out about Amy Cooper in the park, you don't get that reading the paper. You have to talk to the person. And that was just eye-opening. So that I appreciated that little bit of inside look. But 100 days, just astounding.
And you don't know this because we haven't talked about the role you played in us switching. When we started, we were a conference call, an audio conference call for the first 3 episodes. And on the audio show, you decided to turn on your camera because we were using a tool called Uber Conference that has a camera. And you started showing us tech tips and tools that we all should buy to help us survive the pandemic, the lockdown day 3. And I said, this needs to be a video show. And that's why we switched, starting that following day, we moved to video. And here we are, 100 days of shows. So thank you, Bob. Just one of the many ways you've left an impression on me. I want to ask you, Bob, about your work as a writer. And but we also want to talk about your father, because he was in the transit system here. And you have rightly told us many times to look for the news about the transit workers, and also give you a chance to give him a shout out on Father's Day weekend as we go into that.
I appreciate that, Sree. You just made me reach into the drawer for this thing. It looks like a plain old wrench, but what it is a reverse key for the old subway trains. It doesn't work on the ones they run now, except for the R32s, which they're about to retire. So I keep this around as a reminder of my father's work to, keep 3 black boys alive. I guess my mother too, and it's and just to keep the family together. So this is my little reminder here.
So what is it again? It's a kind of key.
It looks like a plain old wrench. In order to get one of the old subway trains to go into reverse, you have to put this into the console and give it a hard yank, which is on purpose because you don't want to reverse a subway train by mistake. So it's a reverser key is what it is. It's very heavy, and I found it the other day, and I just keep it handy. But after 100 days of this show, you've made me get a little nostalgic. So I started reaching for some of my ancient tech, like this. This is my old Sharp Zorus, 1997 edition, I guess. And I actually covered the Consumer Electronics Show. If I can figure out which way to roll, I'll never figure it out. I actually covered the Consumer Electronics Show with this thing. So this is a 1997 Sharp Zorus, and it's still working. And
still working. That's amazing.
You made me remember my 1985 Radio Shack Tandy, which is what I used at the old Milwaukee Sentinel. All of this kind of technology is coming into, I mean, technology is what's making it possible to catch these videos out in the street, to change the news and to keep the conversation going. That's just some examples of how we did it in the old days.
Thank you, Bob. Look, Apollo says reverser key is cool. He says, and that's nice. I want to give Rose and Vandana also opportunity to jump in anytime, ladies, as we're talking here to Bob. There's so many news items we missed. Bob, have you had a chance to think of some of the things that we should have, if we were doing a news we missed? What would you want us to know?
That's a good question. I haven't caught up in the last few hours. Locally, it's so so afraid I'm not being of much help at the moment. But I actually had been maintaining a list of news that we had missed for the other days of the week.
Okay, so Vandana, what was it like to work with Bob on those shows, the news you missed? And we should do one soon, I think. Vandana, were you able to hear me? Yeah. So, what did you think about?
We should do one soon.
A news you missed show.
What did I think about working?
Yeah, on those news you missed episodes.
Oh,
yeah.
It was so much fun, and I got to learn so much. Actually, what I think I learned was that COVID actually frames everything, all the news that all the headlines are consuming. But yeah, I would love to do one again with you, Bob. That would be amazing.
I just thought of something, and I mentioned it in a show that I taped yesterday. I also do a Media Watch show with my friend Eric Tate. It's his show. But I mentioned, you know how the Confederate statues have been coming down all over the place, correct?
Yes.
In Richmond, I was there in 2003 when they installed a new statue, Abraham Lincoln. They had to put Lincoln not in a main square. They had to put him in a park behind a fence that they could close at 5 p.m. That's a little background about the city of Richmond, and it's it's Confederate pride that they had to put the single statue that they have of Abraham Lincoln in Richmond, Virginia, in a city park behind a fence that could be locked at 5. I just, it's a bit of a bit of contrast in light of today's news.
Mm-hmm.
I want to just tell everybody who doesn't pay attention, and they say, well, look at these statues are actually, pride of 150 years ago. Many of these statues, most of the statues were made long after the Civil War was over, decades after, some of them in the teens and 20s, as part of white nationalism and white supremacy wielding power. And that's what we saw. Let's make sure we bring in some of the greetings. We have greetings from people all over the world. So let's look at this greeting.
Hi, this is Achut Menon from Hyderabad, India. 100 days. Congratulations. Sree, Rose and Vandana and the team behind you. Rose and Vandana and the team behind you. You've been an inspiration, touching so many lives. Amazing speakers, fantastic energy. Keep up the great work. Spread the love. Here's a shout out to my daughter Vandana. Molu, Amma and Achan are very proud of you. Dhruv also sends us love.
Oh, look at that. That's proud father.
That's my dad. I had no idea he was doing this.
She cheated.
I love that. That was awesome. And he's you can see how proud he is. Let's see who else sent him.
Sree, Rose, Vandana, and Neil, congratulations on 100 shows. You've been creating and keeping a community of us together, enlightening and informing us and entertaining us. I don't want to say here's to another 100, but I am wishing you all the best.
Thank you. That's Courtney Pulitzer, who many of you met before. She was a guest on our show.
Hello, Sree. This is Joe Appio coming to you from Cumming, Georgia. This is in Forsyth County, Georgia, which is about 30 miles north of Atlanta, very close to Alpharetta and Roswell, Georgia. That's my dog Brownie in the background. It's a beautiful night here. And Sree, I just have to say that you've been a lifeline. You've been fantastic during all of this. You've also been able to secure network talent on your show every night. I know it's you and your producers and your family that have been incredibly supportive, but I have to say this is unreal. What you've pulled off with limited resources is unheard of. You've really maybe changed the way that we're going to be looking at broadcast. You really are a revolutionary. So hats off to you, my friend. Keep up the good work, and let's unify this country.
Thank you. That's Joe Appio, everybody. Was that amazing? We already saw Renee's. Let's see.
Hey, Sree, congratulations on your 100th episode. So exciting. I'm Dr. Marina Kurian, and you have been so kind as to invite me to some of the shows, and I've been super appreciative. I've learned, people have learned. I think it's been such an important and crucial part of our pandemic experience to be able to get great information and a reliable source. And certainly your background in journalism certainly does that. And the beauty of your background and interest in tech is that this has been made super easy by you and your team, and I want to thank all of them. And as many of your viewers know, we're also going to be doing She's on Call. It is Father's Day, so happy Father's Day in advance to all of you guys. And we look forward to seeing you on Sunday as well. Thank you.
And that is Dr. Marina Kurian. We're very proud of our spin-off show, aren't we? Rose and Vandana are producing that show. We'll show everyone the card from it. That is every Sunday, and this is the show that was last week. People can go back and watch it at She's on Call. Go ahead, Rose. Tell us about the show, and tell us about the name of the show as well.
Okay. Well, I just spoke to Marina and Sujana today, a few hours ago, talking about the show. So the show. Well, we were looking for a name. We had some ideas like Woman Doctors Talking, What's Up, Doc? And I kind of threw it out to my family. More of us are here at this time. I have 4 kids, and two are home from college. My daughter is a speech pathologist. She's been around, and we all kind of kicked it around after dinner. And my husband, who's a writer, a comedy writer, and children's book author, came up and said She's on Call, and we were all searching. We searched on GoDaddy to see if it was available, and we saw it was available, and it was available on all platforms. And the idea of the She's on Call is that all doctors are on call, but she's on call, and as Marina and Sudhir have told us, many, not only their family expect them to be on call all the time as women and as women doctors, but people they don't know. They'll go to a concert and the bass player said to Marina, "Well, can you look at my back?" So that's the idea, and we want to create a community where people can call in with questions like on your show, and we're this weekend we're having Dr. Lee Lun, who's a resident, and she wrote a piece in the Washington Post about the danger of rubber bullets. And we're also going to have Dr. Hernandez on, and I think she's an anesthesiologist, and she's going to talk about what she does and how important that has been during COVID-19.
So when people say to you, what did you do during COVID-19? You'll say you made a daily show, and then you'll say you made from scratch a weekly show for doctors, by doctors, for the audience of the world. And you should be very proud, both Vandana and Rose. And this is all. I want to go to our tech expert here, Bob Anthony at New York. Bob, the technology that makes this all possible is pretty amazing. As you look at your career and what you've covered, what does that say about where we are and where this could go, that we could host this on a very cheap platform and tell and bring together a planet?
I mean, I'm very hopeful, because I remember what it took to do something like this, before the turn of the century, as we say. You had to make arrangements with the phone company. You had to have the right video hookup. The audio was just a bitch to get right. I'm impressed at what people do with simple cell phones and tablets. I had to remind myself of the name of the young lady who shot the George Floyd video, Darnella Frazier. So how many times have you tried to teach students to keep the video steady? She's not the least bit trained in journalism video, but she kept video steady, and we caught the entire, incident in a way that you look at a Citizen video and you see so many shaky videos, but she caught it right. So that's what's coming. People are just getting better at it.
That's very exciting. I remember, Bob, I had a Radio Shack, Tandy, I guess it was, and when I wanted to transmit a story to the paper I was working for, it would take we lived in LA at the time. My husband and I would go to lunch and come back, and it was still going.
Yes.
And
you mean this one, bro?
Yes.
Okay.
That was it. And we were living in LA, and I was freelancing for a New York paper.
Yes.
I'm not freelancing, I was staff, but I was a West Coast correspondent covering trade and transportation. And, and I'd go to a conference in downtown LA, come back and type the story, and then, and then it'd take an hour just to transmit. And, of course it wasn't a wire, but, and when I did go to events that had to be live, like a Federal Reserve Board chairman saying something, I would call it in. So, and here we are, look how around the world we're all on one platform.
Yes, I ate a lot of lunches and dinners while my story transmitted, so I know what you mean.
We used to call it, I'm just going to school the young one here in Rose. In Vandana. Rose is also very young, but tell Vandana that we used to call it the worldwide wait. And we would, you'd have a magazine with you, and you'd read, and then you'd read something, you'd hit next, and then you'd read something here, and then it would change, and then you'd look over there, finish reading, and then come back. That was the second screen. Your first screen was a book or a magazine or a newspaper. That was how you got things done. Otherwise, if you just waited on the screen, you'd be just waiting like this to render. It was really something else. We have a couple more videos we want to show, including from a show that I will never forget. And I want to say this to everybody, a lot of television shows and others have kind of pivoted now to covering African-American issues and bringing on African-American guests. And one of the problems of American television is that they bring on, Bob, as you know, as an observer of media and a journalist yourselves, they bring on African Americans to talk about so-called African American issues, right? Like that's when they have them. You don't see African Americans often just talking about everyday things. And we're very proud that we didn't have Bob Anthony on our show, episode number 3, to just chat about what it's like to be African American. We had him on to talk about technology. And we did that work for so many weeks and weeks and weeks that when the time came, when the world was on fire in America, we earned the right to have a show where we talked about being American with great African American speakers such as Sonny Slaughter and Keisha Center and Adam Server. That was a night I'd never forget. I cried through a lot of that show and I learned so much. But We also had Sapphire, the great poet, who's been mentioned so many times on the show today. She's new to Twitter, folks. Everyone, please follow her. That can be one thing we do. Everyone can just go to Twitter, and I'm going to show everyone her Twitter handle so that you can follow her. She is so awesome, and she left such an impact. It's her movie, her book, Push, that became the movie Precious that won the Oscar and everything. She only has 49 followers, folks. She's just getting started. You can follow her right now. Be 51. The 25th anniversary of Push is coming. So there's going to be a big push around all of that. So you're going to see her take off online as more people know she's online.
She's got a trilogy coming up.
That's right. So, and she's been on this show. She's been on my WBAI show. She's just an awesome speaker. And you can see she's in lockdown. She's got the mask on, and she was just terrific. So everybody, please follow her if you're on Twitter. Let's look at a couple of other guests and people who've sent in videos. We're so grateful to them. And let me go on here and go to our Flipgrid. So we're using this tool Flipgrid to bring in videos like this. And if anybody, teachers know this, and this is Sunny, and she's here with us. So let's hear her message to us.
Hi, Sree. Hi, team. I just wanted to drop in and wish you all congratulations on your 100th episode and having that episode happen on Juneteenth. Thank you for recognizing the importance of Black lives, how they matter, why they matter, and why we must keep pressing on for the change that we seek. Sree, you have been amplifying the message, the voices, and those who are making a difference. I just want to take this time to say personally to you, from me, thank you for all that you have done to make a difference in my life. Sending love, blessings, and great cheers on the 100th episode. Take care.
She was just awesome. I want to say you all remember that episode and how great she was. And Bob, one of the things she said is, don't ask your Black friend, what can you do now? Ask yourself, what have you been doing? And I'll never forget that. Even as I say it, I get Bob, you and I have not talked about race in our 20 years together. We never had reason to at all talk about tech. Can you talk a little bit about how you're feeling at this moment with all that's going on in the world?
Well, I guess it's a little bit of hope, a little bit of melancholy that it took this long to get here, and it took an incident like that to get us here. So I'm just hoping that we actually do something with this moment.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say something a little not terribly PC, but when I saw the marchers coming through Brooklyn the other day, I noticed a lot of them were white and a lot of them were young, and they were shouting Black Lives Matter, and that was very encouraging, and I took that to my heart. But a dark side of me looked at it and said, wow, it looked like the doors at Google opened up and everybody walked out. And because you still have companies like that, like Facebook in high tech, in which the African American percentage of workers is in the single digits. So I'm hoping that this is real. I'm hoping that change will come of it. People will actually vote. People will actually do the census. And I'm very hopeful, but I'm old enough to be a little jaded, I guess.
Thank you, Bob, for being here. Thank you for being a friend and for helping me in so many ways. And now you're helping us through this. We have several more videos we need to show. Thank you all for sticking through now the second. We're going into our third hour here. Let's look at some of these videos. They've all been so kind to share them. And here is Rahadian.
Good evening, everyone, from Center Reach, Long Island, New York, about 60 miles east of New York City. My name is Rahadian Sastorodayo, and I'd like to say congratulations to Sree and to all of his team on 100 days of this very valuable daily show. I have to say that I learn a lot whenever I'm able to attend. And I also say that this show and the interviews give me a lot of hope for the future at a time where it seems that, things are dire. We're still in the middle of this pandemic, but I think that as long as we, stay on course and do our best to keep ourselves, our loved ones, and each other safe, that we'll get on the other side of this. So I'm very appreciative, and thank you very much. Have a great night, everyone.
That was Radyan, who has been commenting so much on our posts.
Congrats!
Congrats on 100 episodes! That is so amazing. We have enjoyed so many of these episodes with incredible information and even better conversation. Thank you so much for everything you guys do. Can't wait to see the next 100, right? Yeah.
That's my cousin, Pratna, my sister. I'm so grateful to her out in LA with her wonderful son, Cyrus. And she's a filmmaker. And here's
Hello,
Daryl.
Sree. Good afternoon to you and everyone listening in, entire community. I want to first say happy Juneteenth to everyone and happy Father's Day to you and your entire community of fathers. I also wanted to say that I love you, and one of the things I admire most about you is that you're an open connector. You're willing to share your information and your knowledge with everyone, and that makes me really happy. I'm really happy about it. I want to say congratulations to you and your entire team on this achievement of 100 consecutive shows. And I don't know how many more you have, but I don't want to see it stop. I don't expect you guys to continue every single day after COVID-19, after we reopen, but I hope you would do it at least once a week moving forward. I would appreciate it, and I think the entire community would. We really enjoy listening to you and seeing these shows.
Oh, that's awesome. So not to give Vandana and Rose a heart attack, but every time they hear 100 shows or keep going every day, I know they die a little bit inside.
My husband says I'm on the phone all the time. I said, well, that's my job.
Vandana, I hope you get freed from this, from this, and that you don't have to do another 100 episodes.
I wanted to just say, speaking to what Bob said earlier, there's this great Zora Neale Hurston quote. There are some years that ask a question and there are some years that answer. And I've been thinking about whether 2020 is the year that's asking the question or whether it's been answering it. And I think this year has been answering a lot of open questions. I think for the first time, everyone is kind of on the same page, hopefully. Yeah.
Oh, no, absolutely. That's really something that we're thinking about. Bob has known me for a long time. The others are newer in my life, but I would say I never quote Vladimir Lenin, but he said something that I'll never forget. I learned on one of these episodes where the quote is that there are decades when nothing happens, and there are weeks when decades happen. And this is felt like there have been decades every day. You can't look at the newspaper, the headline, every one of these headlines would have been like 6 columns across on some days if there wasn't so much other stuff happening all at the same time. And that's where we are. Let's look at some more of these videos. By the way, look at how Daryl understood the system so well. He was able to put in his handle and put a link to his Twitter. That's pretty cool, isn't it? So this is new technology and then knowing what to do with new technology. And you saw Daryl there. And here's Iman.
Hi, Sree. This is Iman Ali. I'm at Iman MSW. I am recording this from the Loop. You can't really see it, but the Chicago River is in the background. Congrats on everything. Looking forward to the next 100, or not. We don't want to stay in quarantine for this much longer. But thanks for everything you do. Thanks for everything you've taught me. And I'm honored to call you a mentor and a friend.
Oh, that's so nice. And so Iman was watching, she's with JAMA, the Journal of the American Medical Association, and she was watching our show yesterday, which was like a life highlight, right? To have the chief scientist of the WHO and her title is Director of Pandemic
Response, yeah.
and
the first ever chief scientist. The very first, and a woman. Yeah.
And we are very proud of earning that. And Bob, from their journalism, and as does Rose, you earn your interviews, right? You don't just walk in and be able to do it. If you're with a big brand, of course you can, but we had no brand, we had nothing. And then we earned it along the way. People at the WHO watching our shows and then saying, okay, we'll come on. That takes energy, takes time, takes an audience to keep us going. And you all did that for us. So thank you. Please go and watch episode 99.
Hey, Sree. From my compact, though thriving South Philly herb garden, congrats on your wonderful show. Thanks for being there for us and providing what has been a real lifeline. I'm not the one who came up with that, but I definitely have felt that to be the case too about your amazing show.
That's Steve Taylor, who's on our team and does amazing journalism and social and digital media. Steve DeReeve, everybody, please follow him. He's terrific.
I'm amazed at what Sree has accomplished. 100 shows every single day during this completely unexpected lockdown, at least unexpected for most of us. I've learned firsthand from people on the ground in Italy and Asia and throughout the world. I've heard from different perspectives. Most importantly, we've got a community here that is so valuable. I've met people that I hope I'm going to stay in touch with long after we forget this whole period, which who knows when that'll be. At any rate, Sree, thank you so much for putting so much energy into this and bringing us all together and making this whole strange situation just a bit better for us all. I'd love to know how you do it every day, but thank you.
We do it because of these wonderful producers, the audience, the sponsors, all of them make it possible, my family. And Doug Levy, everyone, follow at SF Doug. He has a daily newsletter, 3 headlines that you have to know about coronavirus. And within 2 or 3 weeks of the virus, he had already written a book on how to communicate during the virus. So SF Doug and at DougLevy.com. Ask him for it, Doug at DougLevy.com.
Hey, Sree and the whole team, I want to say congratulations on 100 shows. I certainly haven't watched even close to that many, but I am awed by everything I see and awed by just how much you produce, and all of it is really good. And the thing I want to ask you guys is, now that you're 100 shows deep, you've talked to so many people, you've explored some major issues right now from so many angles. What is the thing you've learned most about America by having all these conversations? And what, if anything, gives you hope? Wow. All right, here's to 100 more, or maybe this will end and you won't need to do them.
That's Bill Carbone, a friend. And also, I'll tell you a little bit about our collaboration. But Rose, do you want to tell us, and Bob also, I'd love to hear all three of you that answer, not just from the show, but what have you learned about America and what gives you hope? Rose, you want to start us off?
Okay. I guess the diversity of voices that we've been able to hear, not only in America, but I guess worldwide, and that despite all the trouble and pain that we're in, that people are finding ways to connect. And, you know, if we had any small part in anybody's feeling of connection and knowing what's going on the ground, I think, you know, I'm very proud of that.
Great. Let's go to Vandana.
Yeah, I'm not American. I didn't grow up here. I've only been here for a year or two. And I think what I've learned the most about America over the last few months is, like Rose said, there's just incredible diversity, and also it's possible for so many different kinds of people to come together. And I think the last few weeks have really proved that. And it gives me hope that something similar can happen in India down the line. I hope communities can come together in the same way that communities have come together here and showed up for each other, I think.
Bob, your thoughts?
Well, I'm learning as I go, even at this advanced age, and it's good that at least people are talking. A lot of people, most of us, are talking in and not shouting at each other. We're trying to learn from each other. I thought I had seen poverty in New York City growing up, but when I was in Wisconsin, I visited a farm. Some kid had got lost in a cornfield or something. They found the kid, but I visited the farmhouse. Poorest structure I'd ever seen in my life. had never met poor farmers, never seen people live like that. It reminded me that there are so many different types of people and ways to live in this country that I don't know about. And at least we're talking today, all of us that make this American soup work. At least we're talking.
Thank you. This is just great to see all these comments coming in and people speaking and sharing. I'm just so moved by all of this. I wanted to say that I am very, very touched by everyone's response to everything we've been doing. We still have a couple more videos. Bob, if you're going to hang in there, we'd appreciate it. Let's go in here and let's look at another video.
Sree, congratulations on your 100th Sree COVID-19 call. I can't believe that we're here 100 days later. I'll be the first to admit that when you first started doing these calls, when you said you were going to do them daily, I thought you were a little crazy. I thought you were nuts. But the most important thing is that not only have these been very critical calls and shared some really great information, but you made that incredible pivot today on Juneteenth. Over the last 2-3 weeks, you've focused the conversation on racial justice, on equity, on the challenges in our system. So thank you for doing that. And in your honor, I added the hashtag to the top corner. I added a StreamYard logo and a couple of emojis. I know you like to play with filters and trick out your videos. So again, congratulations, and here's to many more. Great working with you.
Oh, that's awesome. From Neil Parekh, who you all know is our producer on the New York Times Read Along. And this Sunday, we have the print editor of the New York Times, 8:30 to 10:30 a.m. Eastern. Everybody, please join us. It's going to be an amazing day. Tom Jolly will be here. And Neil and I, drove to his house, sat at his breakfast table last August and read the New York Times. I couldn't have been happier that to read the New York Times with the man who decides, among many other people, what goes into the New York Times. Ask him questions. Please join us Sunday morning at 8:30 a.m. We'll be so grateful to have you with us for that ride. We have just a few more. Let's keep going here. Let's see who's next. And thank you, Neil, for all you do with us in helping tell the stories and connect people.
Congratulations, Sree and team, on your 100th episode tonight. Thank you for 100 days of critically important conversations. I look forward to much more valuable content from you in the days ahead.
And that's Jenny Lazarus, who is on our team as well. We're so proud of the DigiMentors team, everybody. Please check out what we do and please be in touch with us.
Congratulations.
Oops, sorry.
Hi, Sree, it's Therese, and I just want to congratulate you and the entire Sree team on your 100th global show. I feel so honored to be part of the global Sree community and all you do to pull us together through thought-provoking programming that is both informative and incredibly welcoming. Thank you, Sree.
Therese has been a great supporter of everything we do. We're very grateful to her. And she brought us the Justice Aid guests tonight.
Hi, Sree, and to all your viewers around the world. I'm Lori, and I'll be watching tonight from Rhode Island. I was thrilled to be guest on your show number 97 earlier this week. It was definitely a highlight of a lifetime. And my message to you is that although I'm looking forward to hearing that you are safe and that you and your family can emerge outdoors after the pandemic in New York City, I do hope, though, that you will continue to stay on the air daily and record this show, because I know that I have learned so much from you and from all of your guests. So best wishes, congratulations to you and to your producers. And I look forward to 100 more shows from you. Thanks.
Wonderful. That was Lori White Tarakani. And Lori is the sponsor of the Tarakani Lectures on the First Amendment. And this week they launched with me interviewing the great Cheryl Wu Dunn and Nick Kristof together. And they were with us. And then we watched it all live, and then we replayed that in the interview. And Lori's husband, Jim Tarakani, died a year ago, and she shared his crusading work fighting for the First Amendment. It was a very special evening for me to spend that time at the University of Rhode Island, and then to spend time with Lori and all of you telling the story of Jim Tarakani. Everybody, please go back and look at episode number 97 as well. Okay, let's keep going here. Who else is joining us?
Here we are, 100 days into this global pandemic, 100 days into lockdown, and 100 days of incredible learning and insight through Sree's COVID-19 calls. I have to tell you, it is absolutely mind-boggling how you have done this for 100 straight calls. It is an incredible journey filled with insight, and you have uplifted all of us. You have inspired all of us in so many ways. And once again, through our DigiMentors group and our NYT Read Along family and many other ventures, we are showing the world how social good can be done and how social media can be done right. So you inspired me and many others. And with my 12th show tomorrow for my Spin It Social Hour, I am proud to celebrate Pride Week and support my photo community.
That's great. And that's Stefan Kaplan, who's on our team. Everybody, please check out the Spin It Social Hour. Please follow him on Twitter at Spin It Social. And Rose and Vandana, you know Stefan very well too.
Great supporter. Great supporter. He'll retweet anything, because he knows it's coming from us, and he's really terrific. And his show is amazing. You have to see it tomorrow. It was featured this week in New York. New York Talk?
Today, the New York Times, New York Today. And he doesn't know this, but I worked on the launch of New York Today as a faculty intern in 1997 when I used to write a lot for the New York Times. I have more than 50 bylines there. I created a program working with our friend Kevin McKenna, who has watched the show many times, and he had us. He created a faculty internship where they brought a faculty member, me, into the New York Times to work on a product called New York Today, which was looking at like kind of hyper-local stuff. It was an adventure of a lifetime to be in the New York Times. We were not in the main building, Bob. We were in the annex where the digital stuff. So all the digital people were kept away. And we were not in that famous New York Times building. We were in Times Square, but we were one block over. And so I got to go and sit in on a real Page One meeting and all of that. I was a young professor in 1997, a lifetime ago in every way. Let's keep going here. Let's see who else is here.
Hi, Sree. Congratulations on your 100th COVID call. I think it's just really great how it started out to be a call, has ended up as live stream video. And I think that really shows something about you and about how you turn so much into a learning opportunity. COVID Call has been a really terrific learning experience, and you've had great guests, and I love the response. And I don't want COVID to keep going.
Oh, I'm sorry. Somebody should have said something. Sorry, I was not showing the video. Sorry, folks. Let me go back.
Congratulations.
This is Linda Bernstein on our team. Sorry about that.
I think it's just really great how it started out to be a call, has ended up as live stream video. And I think that really shows something about you and about how you turn so much into a learning opportunity. COVID Call has been a really terrific learning experience, and you've had great guests, and I love the response. And I don't want COVID to keep going, but I want you to keep going at everything you do, and thank you so much.
And that's Linda Bernstein at Wordwhacker. She's one of our dear colleagues who helped make our stories possible, and she's just done such an amazing job with us. She is executive produced Social Media Weekend, which we had to pivot from an in-person event to an online event in 10 days, and she had the faith that we could do it, and we did, and we delivered a fantastic conference, according to other people, not just me. Here are all the people who turned in their videos today. I'm so grateful. Keep sending them in, folks. We would love to showcase them. Just go to flipgrid.com/SreeShow, flipgrid.com/SreeShow. And with that, we're now 2.5 hours into this. This is an epic day. I am just going to say to Vandana and to Bob, we'll come back to Rose in just a second, just to thank you for everything. Bob, I'll give you a chance to give us your final thoughts.
Well, thanks again, Sree, for making me part of this this community that you've developed here. It's been incredible. But like I keep telling you, I feel like the fan who walked into the locker room full of all-stars. You connected me with so many other interesting people. But in this era where journalism is so important, I've promised myself to do something over the weekend. I managed to get paid for a couple different things. I'm going to renew my memberships in the Society of Professional Journalists, in the Deadline Club, in the New York Association of Black Journalists when it expires in a few days, the National Association of Black Journalists, and as a tip of the hat to my father, I'll rejoin the New York City Transit Museum. So congrats on 100 shows.
I'm so touched and so grateful to you, Bob. And I'm delighted. I know that you're going to send in a greeting to your father for our very special Father's Day tribute that we're doing. Everybody, just go to digimentors.link/Father's Day. A father figure in your life, a grandfather, uncle, male role model, anyone with us or not with us anymore, please reach out and do this, digimentors.link/Father's Day. We'd love to showcase your father or someone like who's a father figure in your life. Just email me if you're confused about this or you don't understand. That's me with my dad, and that's Neil Parekh with his dad, Prakash Parekh, who I knew much better than I knew Neil, and then I got to meet him. He was at my wedding, but some of you know Indian weddings are a little crazy, and he was forced to go to my wedding by his father, and he came by and said, Sree, I'm Neil Parekh, and said hello from his dad Prakash, and he moved on. And now 20 plus years later, we're friends and we're working together. So it's awesome. Jonathan, I'm going to ask you the question. What would you like to share with us as we say goodbye to you?
Oh, good question. I think that we will get through the pandemic. We will survive it. Also, that I hope it is a catalyst for change and change for the good.
Thank you. I hope so too. And thank you for watching. I want Vandana and Rose to also thank you for watching for 100 state days.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for being there, even on days when I wasn't there for a few days. I took 2 days off. So thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. Your comments are always really wonderful, and the depth of your watching and learning and being part of this is really tremendous. So thank you so much.
And I'm happy Jonathan got his moment in the sun. He's been so supportive. It's great to have him in front of the camera so we can see who he is and the cool person that he is. Urban
hat.
Ecologist? Urban ecology, did you say?
Yeah, urban ecologist. Yeah.
Just plain interesting.
Yeah, and also he and I have a date to go to the Nutella Cafe in Union Square. We hope it's still there after it all opens up, but I can't wait to go. And I've not had Nutella for 3 months. That means I have withdrawal symptoms, and I might eat the whole cafe if I'm not careful. So, Jonathan, you'll have to keep me away from too much Nutella when we do that. Thank you, sir, for being here, and thank you, Bob. I'll let you both go, or you can stay if you'd like to. You know, we have to read the name. We have to say their names, Bob, if you'd like to stay, and Jonathan also. We'll love to have you do that with us in just a minute. Before we go, we're going to read the names as we've been asked to say by Professor Kimberly Crenshaw, who was a guest on my WBAI show. Bob was on my very first WBAI show. I was very honored that he was there. Vandana, final thought before we go to reading their names?
I just can't believe we're here at 100 days. Thank you to everyone for watching. Thank you, Sree, for doing this every single day. And it's been incredible to meet and learn from so many amazing people, and I hope we get to keep doing this.
Thank you.
Just so touched by everybody's appreciation tonight and their interest in the show and the momentum I think we've been able to build by really doing the work of finding great guests and great content. And Sree, thank you for bringing us on this ride. I've met so many great people from so many different places and different walks of life, and many women to follow, of course. And I just thank everybody and hope you keep watching us, whatever whatever direction we go. We've been changing and pivoting, so thank you.
Thank you. And Rose's hashtag women to follow. Everybody follow that and nominate women to follow for her to write about and to take to the next level. So please do. And now we're going to do, which is something that has been very meaningful, not just to me, but to everyone who's watched. We're going to say their names, and I'm going to enlist each of our folks to join me as we say their names. So I just saw something walk around on the floor here, and so I turned around. But let's go now and ask everybody to join us. And I'm going to first show you this incredible cover of Time magazine. And what you're seeing there is Titus Kaffir's painting that was done. We're just going to watch it for just 1 second. And that is a young George Floyd with his mother, Larcenia Floyd. And he was very young at the time, as you can see. And then he would die 2 years to the day almost since she died, and then was buried next to her. And we're now going to say their names. And I'm going to ask Bob Anthony to start us off. Read about 4 or 5 names, as comfortable as you are, and then we'll ask Jonathan, and then Vandana, and then Rose.
Thank you, Sree. Trayvon Martin, Yvette Smith, Eric Garner, Michael Brown, Laquan McDonald.
Tanisha Anderson, Akai Gurley, Tamir Rice, Jerame Reed, Natasha McKenna, Eric Harris, Walter Scott, Freddie Gray, William Chapman, Sandra Bland.
Jonathan?
Darius Stewart, Samuel DeBose, Janet Wilson, Callan Rockmore, Alton Sterling, Philandro Castile, Joseph Mann, Terence Crutcher.
Chad Robertson, Jordan Edwards, Aaron Bailey, Stephen Clark, Danny Ray, Thomas Antoine Rose.
Botham Jean, Tatiana Jefferson, Michael Dean, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, George Floyd. And onto those names, you can add Rayshard Brooks, who was murdered about a week ago.
And Oluwatoyin Salau.
And so many other names that keep going back in history. I want to read you another name that Rehadian said to us. Bob, tell us the importance of us reading these names and saying those names and saying, why are people doing that now?
Because it wasn't always done. We would hear about the incident, but the names would get forgotten, and especially the people, not just relative to the incident, the humanity of the individuals would get lost in the conversation. So we're doing a better job of fleshing out who the people were. There were family, what families they were related to. We need to know that each and every one of those names were real people with real families.
And that's really important. Rahadian, who you met earlier, says, in citing the many, many Black people who were killed over the past several decades, you often cite Emmett Till. There is also George Stinney Jr., 1929 to 1944, who was convicted of murdering 2 young white girls in his hometown of Alcolu, South Carolina, and sentenced to die via electric chair. He was and still is the youngest person ever executed in that manner. His conviction was later vacated in 2014. He was killed in 1994. And on the grounds that Stinny had not received a fair trial. Thank you very much, and please keep doing what you're doing. Not only is your work enlightening many, including me, it is giving hope that a dystopic future is not an inevitable one. So with that, we will leave you all just to say thank you to all of you for being here, for being part of this family, this incredible community, people around the world that are still watching almost 3 hours into the show. I am so honored to be part of this family and this community. I'm so grateful to everybody here. And looking at all these comments, here's Apollo saying, we appreciate you all. And here is Mark saying, you folks are amazing. Glad to call 5 of you as friends of mine. Thank you, Mark. And so many comments still coming in. And Amber's still here. She was our guest and she's still here. This is so important. We must know their names and we have to read their stories. We have to remember these people. Gives dimensions to their characters, which also gets murdered to justify the cops' injustice. And with that, I will say goodbye to everybody and just say we need to support our sponsors who help us do all this. So a quick shout out to Global Entrepreneurship Experience.org and the team there that makes this possible. We're very grateful that they would give us an ad here, 20% off with the code Sree, Global Entrepreneurship Experience.org. It's a virtual teen camp that starts in July. Please tell your friends with teenagers that that they should check this out. Also, artandco.net. Get involved with the world's largest online art auction, fundraising for COVID-19 victims, artandco.net. And we're also grateful to Muckrack for the Fundamentals of Social Media course. It's already live. It's not coming June 17th. It's already live. And you can get a free certification, mrac.co/social. 4,000 people have taken the course, have signed up for it, mrac.co/social. And also a shout out to our new show that's coming on Sunday. This is actually not the new episode. The new episode is right here. And it is called She's on Call with Dr. Sujana and Dr. Marina. And our guests are Dr. Nadia Hernandez and Dr. Lilu. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. We are so grateful to everyone. Thank you. Thank you. Please email me if you have any comments, questions, suggestions, speakers. We have a fabulous guest tomorrow. We're going to be joined by Jacqueline Dolly, who will be here 9 p.m. Saturday. It's already almost Saturday morning here now, but we're very grateful to everyone who's still here, who still stuck it out and watched. And Steve says he's proud to be part of this family. Radyan sends his love. And he says, I think he broke a record tonight, 2 hours and 45 minutes. Thank you so much, everyone. Rest well tonight. And Makran Boot has been very supportive, and we appreciate it. He's giving a shout out to the historical Great Hudson River Revival Virtual Festival and Father's Day weekend full of music and stories. Everybody check that out. That sounds great. And we will leave you all by just saying thank you to everyone for being here. Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you so much. Everybody wave. Thank you.